What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Mount Rushmore edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, except for the past 2 weeks where these guys held down the fort, and you're listening to them as always. You've got Callum Wiggins.
How are we going to manage this one?
Now it's time for you to figure out a way to throw Valet in there. Robert E. Felice.
Every week I ask these two wonderful gentlemen to manage my life, and every week they decline. I'm currently looking for a valet.
Yeah. That's what we are doing for this week. We have this as a sponsored edition. We have the Pick Your Poison tier that we always mention on the Patreon, and if you click on the join button, you get the YouTube membership, the channel membership kind of thing. That is when you can request something and you can directly sponsor that. And Frankie had suggested this one. He was one of the people that had mentioned doing this before, and this is one of the ones that I know that other people have said, how about you do like the Smark Madness tournament of the managers and valets, or how about you do some other kind of top rope list or something. So it's been a long time in the making, but we're finally getting around to doing it because of Frankie. So if you are interested in this topic and you've been like, man, I've been waiting for this, thank Frankie for that, just the way that we are thanking Frankie by, doing it like he requested. So, of course, thank you, Frankie, for that. And if you want to take part in the Pick a Poison tier and make sure that we do anything like that, that's what it's there for. So by all means, go ahead and do that. And just before we get started to kind of carry this on, this marketplace side of things, if you want to help out in a different way on the monetary side of things, the Darkcast tier is where you can get access to all the extra stuff. We usually do about one of them a month, sometimes a couple more than that. I'm probably going to record one of them later on today to talk about those hot tags that I didn't get a chance to talk about when these two were thankfully holding down the fort and taking care of that for me. Thank you guys very much for that, by the way. You can go back and check that out if you didn't, everybody. They did a great job, as always. There is also the little thanks button. There's the words, Redbubble and TeePublic. I almost got it Red Public, which would have been different. And T-Bubble. It seems like something that would be like a little coffee shop or something, the T-Bubble. But those two places are where you can pick up the merchandise stuff. So if you want to get like a t-shirt or you want to get some kind of stickers or, there's a plenty different variety of different things you can put those designs on. That's where you can get them. And, even $1 a month goes a long way when these things are out there. So I'm going to thank you for that if you are a part of that, just like Frankie is. And we are going to kind of roll along here with what the Mount Rushmore is. And if you don't know what the Mount Rushmore podcast is all about, then you haven't checked out the previous 20 editions or so that we've done of this. We've done a lot more of Mount Rushmore than a lot of the other ones because we like doing it so much and you guys like it too. So Mount Rushmore and Mock Draft have become like two of the main core anchor segments for this thing, and it's because it's a lot of fun. What we're going to do is we're going to try to settle on the 4 representatives that best summarize whatever the topic is. We've done in the past like the Mount Rushmore of WWE superstars or the Mount Rushmore of women's superstars in general, or I think we might have done tag teams. I don't remember for sure. There's a whole list on the wiki page, and if you don't know what the wiki page is, let me know and I'll drop a link below. But we debate about this. We talk about different best and worst options. Sometimes we end up with, I think the maximum we had done was something like 18 different Mount Rushmore lists in that one episode or so. It was like the NXT one or something. We have a whole bunch of different varieties that we do this thing with. So strap yourselves in, because with this topic is managers and valets, which means at the very least, you're getting a Mount Rushmore of managers and a Mount Rushmore of valets. We might combine them. We might do a best and worst. We might do WWE specific and non-WWE. I don't know. We kind of just roll along and see what happens and what naturally feels right. But we've got a lot of people to talk about. I have around 100 people on my list, just of people that I remember the names of and everything, and some other people that I don't really know. And then there's plenty of people that are, outside of WWE, or they popped up for a hot minute or something. So I feel like there are some names that we definitely are going to agree are within that range, but maybe there are some people that we're kind of on the fence about. I think one person to start off with that we can pretty much agree is probably going to end up being on this list And we don't want to just like bury the lead and be like, okay, here's like the 4 that we're probably going to go with. But I think that this one is a good one to start with. Bobby the Brain Heenan. I mean, This guy is as good of a tentpole person for the manager section as you can get.
Yeah, there's not many who are more synonymous with being a wrestling manager. He was like the anchor of the pure Hulkamania days of WWE. He's entertaining as hell. He's managed everyone from like Bockwinkel and the Blackjacks to, I think most people associate him with like Andre and Mr. Perfect. Bobby Heenan is what you think of when you think of a wrestling manager, and I think we can all pretty much lock him in right now.
Pretty much, right?
Yeah, like great talker, great manager. Just overall, he got super involved in whatever feuds that he was going up against, whether it was, well, obviously most famously is basically, it's almost him versus Hogan was the feud more than it was Hogan and Andre and stuff like that. It was basically whoever Heenan was managing would be the person to be taking on Hogan at any point. So like things like King Kong Bundy as well, anyone in the Heenan family. And yeah, obviously people also know him as a great commentator as well, but he was manager, he took bumps, he got super involved in any storyline that he was part of. So I think he is as good of a lock as you could possibly find for these roles.
And he was great in both comedic manager roles where he was just kind of like a buffoon, or he was in, the serious ones. Like, I mean, he's not a total joke with the Andre and Hogan thing. He is the legitimate reason why Andre is a heel and everything. And I think that speaks to his wide range as well, because he's just so good that if you're in the Heenan family, even if you're like the loser of the Heenan family, that's still better than not being a part of it. Whereas some other people, I mean, I guess you could put it this way. A good manager is somebody who's an entertaining enough character, at least in my mind, an entertaining enough character that they could technically stand on their own. But what they're doing instead is they're using that skill to boost somebody else. If they don't end up helping, I don't see how they are in that good manager side. Even if they overtake the person, there's people on this list that they're like the advocate of or something, just to use one of the other people that we're going to be talking about, where sometimes they are the act, not the person that they are managing. And the same thing for the valets too. For anybody who's questioning about the difference between them, there's a little bit of crossover. Sometimes it's kind of obvious, sometimes it isn't. How do you guys tend to define a valet being separate from a manager?
A valet is typically in the role of like arm candy. Like, So like where I would say Miss Elizabeth is a valet, Sunny was a manager.
That's kind of how I look at it, yeah. Sunny was a valet at times, but she took on like a managerial role where she'd be like, this is my team and I'm going to take them to the top. Whereas Miss Elizabeth was like, all right, she's there.
It's someone who enhances the presence of the rest of their rather than actually playing an active role in improving their chances to win a match or like coaching essentially realistically. Right. Whereas like the valet is just this person that's, well, typically a valet's a woman. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but in more case than not, it's usually like a female talent will just be there to make the just to enhance the overall aesthetic of the guy, because he's got typically a good looking woman accompanying him to the ring.
Yeah, like for instance, anybody that's you need a modern example, Scarlett is a valet. She's not really doing anything to manage Karrion Kross. She's mostly there for the visuals of the whole thing. Whereas somebody more like, I guess maybe the most recent female example of a manager that I can at least come up off the top of my head was either Lana or Zelina Vega.
Oh yeah, they're definitely
Vega's a good example.
Yeah, because Vega really helped out. I mean, she could be in a discussion of this too, but Vega
saved Andrade.
She's the difference maker for Andrade for sure. He was really floundering and probably would have been released without Vega. And then she comes along, and just because she's a better mouthpiece, suddenly he becomes AEW champion, NXT champion. I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, no, he's not doing that well in AEW. But maybe he'd be doing better if he would have had Zelina Vega. I'm just saying. But she is a good example of that. She was kind of a valet at times, but then again, I'd classify her a little bit more of a manager. I can't actually think of any male valets.
It very much like depends. It typically would be a case of they would have to usually accompany a female wrestler to the ring.
Mm.
I mean, but more often than not, they would typically get some sort of physical involvement. I guess maybe less so nowadays because you don't typically see men and women like hit each other in the same way they would have done like the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era. So maybe if there's someone who is just I would argue this, and this is actually probably a bit weird, and maybe it's not. I think Stokely Hathaway is a bit more of a valet than a manager.
That's a good point because I think
he doesn't really do anything in the. He does occasionally, but he doesn't do much. He's a talker, and I guess maybe that's part of it. The valets usually aren't talkers, so maybe he is more of a manager in that regard. Valets don't need to be good mouthpieces.
The best example I can give for like a male valet, and this is weird because it's mostly just their entrance, but like think of when Sasha had the car entrance at NXT Brooklyn and she had the guys with her. Like that's kind of like the closest thing you get to a male valet because they haven't
Reggie
really.
was a valet for Carmella before he decided to become a wrestler.
Yeah,
because he wasn't managing her career in any capacity. He was just her sommelier.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Huh. Wow, I did not expect a Mount Rushmore discussion to include Reggie at any point.
Well, he won't be. He won't be
in the right.
He won't be in the discussion, but we got him somehow involved in the discussion.
Look at it this way: if we decided to do a Mount Rushmore of male valets, we pretty much have to put him on.
I'll put it this way: I'm totally down with the idea of having more male valets.
There should be. Why not?
But it's just like, it seems odd that I say it's odd. It's totally understandable why there has been more female because there's predominantly been more male wrestlers. So you're realistically going to give them a female valet. But yeah, there needs to be more of a mix and match, especially for just like, why can't just a female wrestler just have a good looking guy standing next to her the entire time? Like that's totally cool.
Yeah, and I mean, typically the pro wrestling audience skews more male, so of course. There's more of a chance that there's going to be attractive female versus attractive male as some kind of an engaging concept. But even still, women watch it, and
Hey, if you want to increase the female viewership, you basically find the male equivalent of Stacy Keibler and attach them to a female wrestler, and then you're pretty much good.
Yeah. Speaking of Stacy Keibler, if you think valet, I mean, she's one of those options.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think she wasn't the strongest talker, but I think she did well, and I think she did do her job of enhancing the aesthetic of the guys that she was with. Like you look at Test in particular, immediately stands out because Test is a weird one. It's the case of someone who I had no idea whether he was good or not. It's kind of a weird thing to say.
Yeah, and like
Stacey helped him.
His character didn't really have a set character. Like he wasn't, the Undertaker or somebody where it's like, all right, he's a dead man. He does this. This is all his moves that are named after whatever. Having Stacy Keibler call the Test fans the Testicles was kind of as close as a character as you can get. And without that, it just becomes even weirder if he's the one saying it. But if you got, this super attractive woman doing that, then people could be like, yeah, all right, I could get down with that in 2000, whatever.
Well, Test's character was jealous boyfriend. That was kind of like the most, the most amount of character that he ever really displayed was, jealous, angry, misogynistic boyfriend. And that was probably the most prominent he ever was on TV was when he was both initially being managed by Stacy and then turning heel on Stacy and basically forcing her to be his valet against her will.
Well, because he had kind of come in as just muscle for the McMahons, right? Like it was just like, oh, well, we picked
he was
up
just
this
part
guy.
of the corporation initially,
Yeah.
Right, because and they did the thing with Steph, and then after that, yeah, he never really had a character. So Stacy did enhance Test at least in that way.
And then Test even carried that over into just having Kelly by his side with a different thing, and then
Stacy wasn't even the first one. It was Trish was the first one as well.
Right,
That's right. So, yes.
He's somebody who's defined by his valet, his blonde valet.
I think the Test formula is just stick him with pretty blonde valet.
Right.
All right.
Now that brings up another point of discussion that, you might agree or disagree. If you do, leave a comment below and let us know what your thoughts are. What you should be doing for anything like this. Tell us your decisions and stuff and who you pick on your Mount Rushmore. But it brings up the discussion of what qualifies somebody as a valet or a manager versus just another superstar or a tag team partner or something along those lines. Because somebody like a Kelly just brought that name up. She was a valet for a little while. She was essentially the valet for Mike Knox. Then she becomes a wrestler. And then she's even winning the Divas Championship and such. My point of view is it's not mutually exclusive. If you are a wrestler's wrestler, you go out there, you win championships, you stand alone as just this person. That doesn't mean that you weren't a manager or a valet before, during, or after that time frame. And somebody like a Ric Flair, for instance, of course he's a wrestler. He's way more of a wrestler than he was a manager or by any means a valet. But he did act as a manager in some ways. He was essentially a manager for Charlotte Flair, for instance. And, he's worked as manager for Randy Orton over the past, sometime in 2020, 2021, something along those lines. I forget exactly when they booted him out of that. But, he is somebody who crosses over with that. And I kind of look at it as look, you might not be that's your main thing is that you were a manager or something, but that doesn't disqualify you from potentially being a part of the discussion. You guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as long as you were very well considered, well, you were a good manager or valet, you shouldn't be excluded for a period, even if you were more prominent as a wrestler afterwards or as a commentator or any other role. So, but I think I'll still find myself leaning more towards the ones that are more kind of career valets and manager as opposed to wrestlers. Yeah. But as I say, they shouldn't be mutually exclusive.
Agreed completely.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that we're going to end up with Mount Rushmores that have Melina on it, for instance. She was more of a wrestler than she was a manager or a valet, but part of M&M, manager or valet more than a wrestler. So, but
this is the only time we'll get to say DDP was the only example of manager to wrestler and super successful on the male side of things. So, but I don't think he'll end up on the Mount Rushmore. I think he totally has to be acknowledged for being able to make that transition and do it so well.
This isn't a name that I imagine us having necessarily on, well, of course, definitely not the manager list, but more than likely not on the valet list. Would you guys classify the Nitro Girls valets?
No.
It just popped into my mind about Kimberly Page. It's
because Page would be.
Kimberly Page,
Kim Page, yeah, for sure.
Pages, Stacy Keibler, Miss Hancock was.
Yeah, a few of them separately beyond that. But I meant the act of the Nitro Girls because they didn't accompany anybody to the ring, but they were.
No, they were cheerleaders.
Yeah,
they performed during the ad break for, and then you came back at the ad break for see the Nitro Girls. That was their role. It's
honest to God, I don't know how no one's stolen that since. It seems logical to keep the fans entertained during the commercial break.
Yeah, I was saying as equivalent. I don't consider any of the girls they used to put in the cages on Impact pay-per-views to be managers either.
They had girls in cages? I wasn't watching that.
Yeah.
It's alright. Very few people were.
I mean, there's also the ones that were at that Raw Underground. There's I get the only one that really happened outside of that, the 1 week of the Raw Underground girls, was the group that would accompany Kenny Omega to the ring. And for his entrance with the brooms. Yeah. They're, I guess, I mean, they technically are valets, kind of, I guess. I don't know. They're on the cheerleader side, but, we're not putting them in the Mount Rushmore.
No.
Broom girls under the Mount Rushmore of valets. But, not many instances of, like, that sort of weird, you're not a valet, you're not a manager, you're not a broadcaster, you're not an interviewer, you're not a commentary person, you're not a referee, you're not an official, you're not a wrestler. What the hell are you, kind of thing. I don't know. So let's start getting into this. Remember, everybody, as I said, drop your comments below. We've talked about a couple different people, but let's start digging deeper. What's an oddball name you want to toss out there?
Oddball.
Yeah, just one of those, like, maybe it's like one of the worst, or maybe it's somebody who you're like, this one might not get as much attention, but I really like them, or something.
He'll never make the Mount Rushmore, but this is the only chance, maybe in this whole podcast series, that we'll get to talk about Slick.
Yeah, that's so true.
Should,
Slick is one of those guys that a few years ago, when I came across him on some random, like, I was rewatching something or whatever, and we're talking, and it's probably more than a few years ago at this point, it's probably over 10, but I was just kind of like, I don't fucking remember this guy. And you figure I had been watching mostly the late 80s through the 90s from, like, old videotapes and everything like that. I could not for the life of me remember who Slick was. And I had to, like, really go deep into, like, who did he manage and everything, because it was just like, this guy completely got eradicated from my brain. I couldn't tell you a single person, even now, that Slick definitely managed. But I know who Slick is.
I know one person that Slick definitely managed, because it's Akeem. So
that's right. Yeah.
So that's the one that immediately sticks to mind, because I remember the ceremony that they transformed one man gang into Akeem.
He was embracing his heritage. Okay, that's what they're going with.
I mean, you look through some of the lists of some of the older people they're managing as well, and it's just a case of, you see, they managed like 24 tag teams and 12 wrestlers. Like, I probably couldn't name a lot of them, but that's because I wasn't watching as actively at that point in time. But yeah, it's just some of these people were just there as, and that was at the point in time as well where WWE was really big into managers and valets as well, back in the 80s and early 90s, where people would essentially just trade wrestlers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I'm swapping you for, like, this tag team for your tag team. It's like it's almost like the managers were the people, like, in control of wrestlers' contracts instead, not the company, which is quite an interesting time.
And it's an easier way to explain it to the people, because, okay, this is a wrestling league, and you've got these managers who go out and find these guys, and yeah, they would trade people. Like, basically, the way Slick came in was Blassie was retiring, and he just brought in, I guess, what was supposed to be a 1986 pimp into the WWF, of just like, yep, all my guys are going to be managed by this guy now. They even did a bit where I think Heenan paid in full cash for one of Slick's guys, and it's like, why do you want cash and only cash? He's like, yeah, don't worry about that. So Slick was a character where they walked a fine line with something in 86, 87. Obviously, as everything did, it gets way more cartoony. And he's just, just a caricature of what, these stereotypes were. But Slick is also important because he managed Boss Man in the Hogan feud. He managed Akeem, as we said. Like, I believe Power and Glory. So he had some guys. Never, like, managed a champion or anything. But he was one of those definite Yeah, if you're watching in the late 80s, early 90s, you know who this guy is. Unless you're Tony and he just gets eradicated from your brain.
Yeah. It's pretty sad when I can say I remember Oscar from Men on a Mission more than Slick.
Why does it always go back to that?
Because it's Mabel, and he's carved out some kind of weird part of my brain. I don't know why. Oscar's not on the Mount Rushmore, by the way. No fucking way is Oscar on there. He was terrible.
He could be on the worst one.
Yeah, you know, he could be on the worst. Let's start creating a separate list here just in case. Worst managers, worst valets. I got a little bit of a spreadsheet going on that people can't see right now. I'm not going to bother to put that on the actual video itself, but I will put I'll put Oscar on a potential worst manager thing, just at least for the discussion.
I'd like to mention this guy because I don't think he's going to end up going on the Mount Rushmore for best managers because I don't think he ever worked for WWE, but he was an ever present in the NWA, and that's Gary Hart.
Yeah,
you might talk about Jimmy Hart and later on as well, in terms of more WWE side of things. But Gary Hart was such a great shitty talker in terms of like he riled people up so easily, and everyone like he was so unbelievably despisable. And he had this I think he was quite worked in the Southern Territories quite a lot, so I think he had quite a strong Southern accent, and it was I can't like replicate it because well, first of all I'm British, and second of all I wouldn't even dare do it anyway. But I think that he had a very distinctive voice. Like if you heard him, then you could immediately like pick it up in future interviews that he would do as well. But he worked with people like the Great Muta, which obviously they were people that would need managers because they're not native English speakers, so would need that kind of mouthpiece working for them. And he would do stuff with but he would also work with like Terry Funk and Roddy Piper, who clearly didn't need mouthpieces, but he would help elevate them as well. And I think that, yeah, in terms of like best managers in like that worked exclusively outside of WWE, I'd say he's very near the top of the list.
Yeah, once you throw that qualification in there, he is definitely near the top. He is responsible for the American Dream Dusty Rhodes babyface turn, which is how we know Dusty today. So that alone, his impact will forever be felt. I mean, he, as Callum said, huge in the Southern Territories, big in Texas, big in booking in Texas as well. I know we're not getting into that, but Gary Hart had a huge presence in that territory. He did a lot on WCW TV in '89. And yeah, just one of those people that you would see constantly if you go back and listen to territory stuff or watch any of it. Gary Hart always comes up because he was important. And he also managed like Kabuki, Kamala, just those names that you hear when you think of monsters in the territory era.
I'm looking at my random list that I've written some people down for. There's a lot of people that I didn't write down on my list to keep track of, but that their basic gimmick is, hey, this is like a xenophobic angle. There's a lot of that. Like,
oh yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, the kimchi.
Yeah, let's get that one out of there real quick, because that's just insert person under a mask. Most of the times it was brawler, and that's stupid, bad, and it shouldn't be discussed.
But I don't remember Babu.
So he was Tiger Ali Singh's manservant.
Oh, that sounds like a best.
well, essentially, all he would do, like, I don't actually recall him ever properly managing Tiger Ali Singh. It was more just a case that they would have segments on during the peak of the Attitude Era. This is when wrestling was at its absolute peak of viewership, where he would do things like force Babu to suck a fan's toes or something like that.
Yeah, I bet he did. Oh God, wrestling.
Well, no, actually, it was the other way around. He would pay fans to suck on Babu's toes or stuff like that.
I bet he did.
Yeah, and that's basically what his character was at that point in time. Well, no wonder he didn't get over. But yeah, that's not a great one.
Speaking of not a great one, Tony, we're not going to talk about the Ho Train.
The Ho Train is on this list because I think that is something that is certainly not necessarily a best valet thing, but the concept is great for when it happened.
I think the concept was great. My favorite being him telling the Undertaker during a time where the Undertaker was very much not breaking character. I've known you for a long time, and I know you love hoes. I think, yes, funny, but you're not getting anywhere near a Mount Rushmore of anything.
No, there's better options for the valet than the Ho Train. But I did think that it was funny that we could classify them valets because they really did accompany the Godfather to the ring, and they were there just for the sake of eye candy, even though some of them, oof.
I mean, we seem to be concentrating a lot on worst ones at the moment.
Yeah,
so,
why not?
Yeah, let's dive into some worst ones because some of these are actually quite, or some of our opinions might be fairly controversial where it comes to this, because I don't know, some managers have quite a strong legacy, but from what I've seen of them, or also what I've heard about them, actually weren't that good. And the one that immediately springs to mind is Mr. Fuji.
See, Mr. Fuji, I think is great.
What did he ever do?
Through salt, people.
Yeah.
He won Yokozuna championship.
But he was he couldn't talk. He wasn't a talker at all. So it's like he'd play a mouthpiece for any of the characters that he was with. And he was obviously a wrestler back in the day, a multi-time tag team champion in the WWF. But I think they just kept him around because they liked him rather than him actually being any good at his job.
I think that's a fair assessment. Fuji really quickly goes from in-ring talent to manager, and I think where it really kicks off for Fuji is Demolition. And because Demolition's champion for 400 plus days, that's where a lot of his reputation sinks in. And he also had the Fuji Vice stuff with Morocco, and obviously later the Yokozuna run. He wouldn't be on a Mount Rushmore for me, but it is one of those characters that was so perfect in a time of gimmicks. He had the cane, he had the salt. That's all you needed basically to be on the outside of the ring.
Fuji to me is a B or C tier Rushmore type guy.
I think C tier is fair.
Yeah, he wouldn't be one of my top 4 by any means. There's plenty of other people that can go on there above him, but I love me some Mr. Fuji throwing some salt in people's face.
Okay, that's fair enough.
If we're talking pure... Oh, no, you have another one? Yeah, go.
I'll say another one that I think borders the line between some people really like him and some people really don't is the Genius, Lanny Poffo.
I could leave him,
Genius to me is one of those mid-range guys. I can't say he's worst. I certainly can't say he's best.
I think some people really like the character and some people really despise it. So maybe, middle ground is the right way of putting it. He wouldn't appear on either or, but I just think there are some ones which your mileage varies one way or the other.
Yeah, I could see some people fighting for him.
What's the one that you think is really bad already?
Mama Benjamin.
Oh, of course, Benjamin. Yeah. Really terrible. Shelton, valet. Is that valet? I think.
I kind of was manager. I was kind of constituting her a valet. Yeah.
What was the point? That was
Big Mama's House was a series that was going on. And
Vince saw a Medea movie at one point.
Yeah, basically, it was we should do that.
That definitely is one of those things that Vince was having his fucking belly laugh backstage. Just, she's his fucking mom. And then everybody's like, Christ, we got write another one of these segments. Mama Shelton Benjamin. No, it's terrible. Yeah. I didn't even watch it during that era, but what I've seen since then, I'm really glad I skipped out on a lot of that. That's garbage. Whether she could potentially go on the worst manager or valet one. I got her down under valet right now just because I think it kind of makes a little bit more sense, but she's definitely in that range.
While we're attacking worst, still, Mr. Perfect's coach, Bobby Heenan really should have just made it through SummerSlam 91, and then retired along with Perfect. The coach was so bad.
I don't even remember the coach.
I think it actively takes away from that SummerSlam match with Brett. So to hell with the coach.
I couldn't tell you what he even looks like. That was one of those names that I saw on the list, and I was just like, his coach? I don't remember his coach. I remember Mr. Hughes, the bodyguard, and I didn't like Mr. Hughes. That was a terrible kind of character.
Do you know he's still walking around doing indie shows with an urn, claiming it to be the Undertaker's urn? I think that's amazing, and I think Curtis Hughes deserves an award for that. But yeah, he's not a great bodyguard, manager, valet. I wouldn't put him on the Mount Rushmore for any tier.
Randomly was a part of he was the bodyguard of Triple H for, what was it?
Yeah, for
Royal Rumble 97. Yeah. That's about it.
Jericho for a while when he came in as well.
This guy just randomly pops up here and there. I got a couple different people on this list that are just like, yeah, that was bad. That was bad. That was, know.
Yeah, some of them, most of them are kind of like just innocuous and weren't there long enough. But one that wasn't there very long, but I thought was actively bad is Sapphire.
Oh, Sapphire sucked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was actually just looking up Sapphire because I knew we were doing this and I knew we'd get to Sapphire. She was already in her 50s when she was doing that, and just the worst part of Dusty's career. I'm sorry.
People watch that and think, well, people watch that time and can then just look at you straight in the eye and say that Vince McMahon was not intentionally burying Dusty Rhodes as soon as he got him on the contract. It's just, you're kidding yourself. It's like, yeah, put him in polka dots, make him a common man gimmick. But yeah, and essentially in a world where you know that the wrestling valet is meant to be like this, at that point in time, at the very least, meant to be this beautiful, eye-catching eye candy, essentially. And then, okay, so we're going to subvert things and give him a 50-year-old woman who just dances around with him and then turns heel on him later on in his feud with Ted DiBiase.
Because money is still everything. So up yours, Dusty.
Yeah, that was just terrible.
Sapphire, she could be a lovely woman backstage or something, but that character was just garbage. That's more of a valet than a manager for sure. And definitely. I'm putting her on the potential list.
Yeah.
So we've got some different people under those. I actually didn't. I don't think I wrote this down. But the Beaver cleavage thing, Mrs. Beaver. Was there any Mariana?
Was that not BB?
No, that wasn't BB. No, BB was a paramedic. It was so Mariana was yeah, no, it's these shitty ones at this point in time. I don't know why I remember this sort of stuff. I just wish it would go away. But
Mrs. Cleavage.
Yeah, she was Mrs. Cleavage first of all, but then when they decided to switch that, and he became just Chaz, she became his girlfriend.
Yeah,
who was lying about him abusing her, and then Glenn Ruth just shows up randomly, no makeup on. It's like, hey, she's lying. By the way, let's go be headbangers again. For all the talk that the Attitude Era gets for being great, I think people greatly overlook these things.
Rose-tinted glasses, for sure. People are like, Austin was amazing. The Rock was great. DX was cool. And you're like, remember Beaver Cleavage? And they're like, no, I don't. But all those, Nicole Bass wasn't from an era that I was watching, but...
That was, again, it was a really shitty attempt to recreate China.
Mm-hmm.
And this, obviously China was still around at that point in time, still doing stuff, but China had started moving into more of the rest of the space, whereas you had this super jacked. I don't want to be mean because she's not around anymore, but it's like this woman who was designed to be overly masculine and unattractive, attach them to Sable and Val Venus, and
and the swerve is that Val actually kind of likes it. Because that's where we were at. While we're here, let's just knock off Frenchie Martin. Sucked. Terrible gimmick. Silly gimmick. If you're gonna put Dino Bravo with anybody, better with Jimmy Hart. Yeah, that's about all I had to say about Frenchie. Some other names I would knock off this list rather quickly. I don't think Serena Deeb needs to be. Look, I loved her in the SES, but was never there long enough to really be praised for it. Amy Weather, please. She's not on this list, but Joy Giovanni, please. Crystal Marshall, I don't even think she managed anybody. Did she?
I think she briefly managed The Miz for a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, like she's one of those people that's like,
yeah,
she was a nothing person. I mean, I'm not talking about the person herself, but like her character was nothing.
Yeah, we talked about Jillian Hall when she was managing JBL and got the thing eaten off her face by Boogeyman.
Thing on her face. The Boogeyman ate it. Gross.
Yeah.
Gross.
But yeah, that's kind of like a minute list too. I think some other ones, potential candidates for worst. Yamaguchi-san. So speaking of Val Venus, as we were earlier, the whole choppy your pee-pee.
Listen.
Instant.
Listen. When you're 5 years old, that's hysterical. And it can still make you laugh today because it made you laugh when you were 5.
When you're 10, 11 years old and they do that segment and that you don't see what happens, you go to school the next day and you go, you think they cut off his dick? Oh my God. Well, I mean, he had the sword right there. Like, of course he cut it off. What do you mean? How would it possibly have not done that? They wouldn't cut off his dick? Like,
that angle closed out of Monday Night Raw. Again, I want to say, maybe let's take off the rose-tinted glass. Harvey Whippleman. I like Harvey Whippleman.
Harvey Whippleman is one of those people that if you're going like, best managers and all that, like I can't put him in that league of Bobby Heenan, but he was such a big part of like a short time frame of just like this sleazy little weasel that was like funny that I can't say I dislike him. Like, I wouldn't put him on the worst by any means. I mean, worst to me are like the gimmicks that suck and nobody enjoys them and they're not fun. They're not entertaining. Whippleman was definitely entertaining. He's just a shitty manager and a comedic character and all. I like Harvey Whippleman, but he's no Mount Rushmore.
He was in the main event of WrestleMania 8. Not a lot of people can say that they managed that.
Former women's champion as well.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Jesus.
More worst potential valets. So the ones that spring to mind got Cherry from Deuce and Domino.
Cherry
who was just 50s girl.
Yeah,
she might as well have been in basically with her gimmick, she might as well have been in Wrestlicious. That's basically all she was. And then they tried to turn her baby face and no one cared. So that's Ryan Shamrock.
Oh yeah, Ryan Shamrock.
Yeah. My favorite thing about Ryan Shamrock is the whole angle. And this is a WrestleMania angle. Is everybody is either trying to get with or has been with Ryan Shamrock, who is the storyline sister.
Except her brother, who in real life
will end up marrying her. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's wrestling for you.
Weird. Yeah. Didn't have to try and sneak some sort of incestual angle into everything.
Except in this case, they snuck it into real life.
Yeah. Hiroko Suzuki, who's Kenzo Suzuki's wife, for that brief stint that he was in the company in 2004. And yeah, she was just this typical geisha girl character. So, just playing into stereotypes, as WWE is wont to do. And I think the only thing that she ever really did of note was she got into a feud with Tori Wilson because Kenzo was infatuated with Tori, obviously going against his wife's wishes. And so in typical fashion, she got angry at Tori rather than her husband. And they had, I think they had a bra and panties match or something where they were both dressed as geishas because, Ruthless aggression.
As it happens,
Yeah. That's how in Japan they would settle those differences.
I'm looking at some of these other things on this list of some different people that were like they're known for something else that's more so, but they still technically were a manager or a valet at some point. not best, not worst, or anything like that. They're just, people to bring up some names. Trish, Tori, Dawn Marie, a lot of women at some point ended up being just kind of like standing next to some guy. And most of them are just...
That's the early 2000s.
And Trish was the best of them, who parlayed that into a phenomenal career.
Yeah, like any of them, I'm like, we mentioned Melina earlier, Maxine in NXT. Like, there's nothing really too much to get into about them. It's not like, they had any particularly notable things that they were doing.
I mean, well, Maxine does, but not in WWE, because she was Katrina in Lucha Underground.
Yeah, WWE-wise, she's
character.
nothing,
Yeah, that was a great character, Katrina. I wouldn't say she's like top valet Mount Rushmore, but like she was very, very good in Lucha Underground. I'd say at least for some of these women where you got like I would prioritize the ones that were the better talkers. Like Trish was a great talker, but she could talk for people like Test and Albert, who weren't that great on the microphone. And then Dawn Marie was a good promo as well. Tori wasn't a good promo.
Yeah,
but Tori was kind of there not to be a manager, but to be
eye candy thing.
Sexy. But then you look at people from the 90s where you look at people like Sunny and Sable. Sable couldn't talk, actually. Sable.
No, she couldn't.
She's definitely a valet. Sunny's a manager because she could talk for the guys that she was managing. Even though she obviously, you could say that with the more like Skip and Zip, she was more probably in the valet period at that point in time. But then when she went on to manage like the Godwins or the Smoking Guns, or she was definitely the brains behind the operation there.
Sunny is somebody I think it's worth talking about in a
positive light for a
change. Yeah, in my Mount Rushmore range, she could be at least, if not the A tier, a B tier person for manager and or valet. I was a huge fan of the Sunny character, and not just for obvious reasons, but like I legitimately think that she brought a lot to those people. Like, she was a fun part of the Godwins. She was the standout of the whole Skip and Zip thing. I really liked her as part of just being the valet for the Smoking Guns and everything. There are people that have done technically more, but I'd put her in that kind of discussion range. Kind of just do you classify her valet? Do you classify her manager? I'd go either way. I'd lean a little bit more towards valet, though.
Yeah, I think I'd have to, just because
there's bigger names under the manager one.
Yeah, the manager scene is going to get filled pretty quickly. But I do like Sunny more than plenty of other women who have tried to have pulled off the Sunny role in years previous and since. But there is still that, like, it's Sunny,
Yeah. But, what happens after that, I don't think invalidates it.
That's, I guess, true.
I guess we should just put this name down on this list. I mean, Miss Elizabeth is going under the valet, so,
Yeah,
just to set a baseline.
Valet, and she is, if not as well as on the Mount Rushmore, she is like a Lincoln Memorial, like Miss Elizabeth is the valet in wrestling.
Yeah, if there's a Statue of Liberty when it comes to valets, it's Miss Elizabeth. And it's not even, obviously we could discuss her and the positives and all that. It's not even something we really need to get into because it's just obvious. And we're clearly not talking about WCW Miss Elizabeth. We're talking about WWF. So that's, when she starts getting into the NWO and everything, that goes downhill considerably. But
coordinating the dresses to match with Randy, like that kind of stuff is next level. And it's why you remember Liz to this day.
Having a featured part of the show where she's essentially just sort of standing there, to the point that they have this wedding and the reuniting of her and Macho Man, and people are crying and everything, and that's one of the biggest angles, one of the big stories and draws of the whole time frame. Like, Miss Elizabeth is a definite anchor. She says, like, if we're gonna put down Bobby Heenan as like, all right, it's obvious that he's going into the manager one, Miss Elizabeth is obvious for the valet.
I'll give you another one who I think should absolutely be on the Mount Rushmore for the Valet. Woman, Nancy Benoit, needs to absolutely be on this list. Woman was phenomenal.
I was about to bring her up as well, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe not as certain, but definitely a potential one. Like she was great. She was such a striking figure.
Here's the reason why it's a certain for me. There's only one other person that I think nails the toughness and the elegance in one shot, and it's Sherri. And honestly, woman doesn't get enough credit for the things that she was able to do in the industry. She was able to go back and forth between WCW and ECW all the time, managed Flair, Shane Douglas, Doom, obviously Kevin Sullivan, obviously, Chris Benoit. She just added so much to everything she did, and I think her presence sometimes goes a little understated, unfortunately. And I would like to take this time now to put a spotlight on what she was able to do in the ring or around the ring.
I'm creating a separate non-WWE list that we might end up just merging and just having a not specific WWE thing and kind of combining them. We might keep it separate. I don't know, but she is somebody who definitely all right, she's in that discussion range for sure. Do we have any other people that could definitely go under the worst?
Under the worst, Ranjin Singh.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I'd go worst for him. I didn't like the character by any means, but he's kind of in that genius range to me where it's just like, he's just a guy.
But he wasn't really he didn't do anything besides just translate what the Great Khali was saying. Like, it's not really, I don't know. I wasn't super a big fan.
I wouldn't put him on the same range as Kimchi and Yamaguchi-san and Oscar and, but he's not good. I don't want to put it that way. He's not good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones that might stand in there. I still think Yamaguchi-san should be there.
Yeah, he's in that range.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. One that is controversial. I assume won't go into there because he's a love or hate guy. But Lou Albano.
For the worst?
Well, I think it's one of those ones where you've got a character that supersedes the wrestlers, but it's not in a good way. Says that he was always going into business for himself. Like, it was about him getting over and him getting all the words in, and less so about the people that he was actually managing.
I currently have him separated with Mr. Fuji and Harvey Whippleman, where I could see people putting them in their best. He's not on my best, but I could see people doing that because he's iconic.
It's weird because you got Lou Albano, who does manage a whole bunch of tag team champions, including the Samoans, and I'm not talking about before the Head Shrinkers, when he was an actual serious heel manager. And then there's also Lou Albano, the pop culture icon,
who was even Super Mario.
And is in the Cyndi Lauper Girls Just Wanna Have Fun video, and he's such a big part of that rock and wrestling boom. It's weird, but if you had to narrow it down to a few people, he's in that small circle of people that is responsible for it. So I don't know if I could put him in the worst, but he would make my personal top 4.
I think he's one of those, you got to give him credit for what he did, but we still have big names that are going to bump him off the list for sure in any range. And I'll bring up one of those right now. Paul Bearer. I fucking love Paul Bearer.
See, I don't know whether I would end up putting him on the Mount Rushmore or not, which is, he's definitely a contender. But I think that his character was so... It's weird to say.
Muddied?
Limiting. in the sense that there was only a very certain select group of wrestlers that he could manage with the gimmick that he had. Like, it's not like you could really change, and like Paul Bearer's like a surfer now, and he's managing Surfer Sting or something like that. That wouldn't work. Like, he had to manage The Undertaker and Kane and Mankind and characters of those nature, because his character wouldn't allow any different. But he obviously does a fantastic job in that role. His voice is so iconic and shrill, and that just like worked perfectly for him, especially at a time where The Undertaker just wasn't speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you got to
Kane
figure
wasn't speaking.
He's got iconic moments. You know, he's the reason why the Kane story works, because he sells it. He's the guy that has this great turn on The Undertaker with the urn. He is responsible for a lot of the times that The Undertaker left. You know, he's like, I'm going to bring out the urn, and this is the return of The Undertaker, because he's, you know, releasing the power, or whatever the fuck they constituted at that time. He enhanced The Undertaker's character for sure. And people can do impressions of him. You know exactly who, you know, some of these other names on this list might be like, if you weren't watching at the time, you might not know who Armando Alejandro Estrada is. But if you're a wrestling fan, you know Paul Bearer. He's definitely a Mount Rushmore for me.
Paul Bearer he's so iconic. Just if you just take the 91 to 96 run alone with Taker, I've never seen since then something that fits so perfectly. Paul Bearer and The Undertaker is a match made in heaven, and
or hell.
I think or hell. And I think without the muddying of the character, that's what kind of kills it for me, is all the stuff you do get into eventually with he's with Kane, and then he's not with Kane because he's with Taker, and then he's not. Like, that's when it gets confusing. But like those pure 5 years, I think some of the best manager stuff ever done in WWE. And I think he's at least, I got to put a pin in it. I don't know if he makes the Final Four, but I got to put a pin.
How do you guys feel about somebody like... Oh, actually, before we get into that, let's just talk about, to address the other one. Paul Bearer, way better than Brother Love.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone had mentioned earlier about people looking at you with a straight face and saying that Dusty wasn't a rib. Yeah, that might have been the time to bring up Brother Love. I like Brother Love. We don't really get to see him as a manager, so we don't know how that would have all turned out. I highly, highly, highly doubt it would have ever been as iconic. But yeah, Brother Love as manager, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about Deborah McMichael?
I know how King feels.
Yeah, I was going to say, iconic because Puppies was in the vernacular of wrestling fans solely.
It still technically
Deborah.
Is, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that people can't say. But,
but I can't say like, oh man, Deborah managing Jeff Jarrett was so good. Deborah managing Mongo, so good. Deborah managing Austin, you know, like I don't really consider a lot of what she did as a manager to be that noteworthy, but she's definitely iconic for what she ended up doing for the industry, I guess, through the King.
As a manager, I don't put her anywhere close. But as a valet, potentially.
I'd say she was crucial to Jeff Jarrett's act at that point in time. I think she was absolutely essential to him getting the heat that he got. Obviously, Jeff Jarrett is really good at playing a heel, but the biggest part that got him heel heat was the fact that he wouldn't let Deborah go out and strip, essentially, which is again just another symptom of the Attitude Era. But that was essentially his way of generating heat, was to prevent Deborah from showing off the puppies or using the puppies in order to get wrestlers distracted in order to take advantage of it. Like that again, it always boils down to the message that I share with a lot of people. Jeff Jarrett broke 10,000 guitars over people's head and never drew a dime. But that is, and realistically, I think at that point in his career, the reason why people thought that Jarrett was really good is because Deborah was the actual thing that was drawing attention to his character more than him actually being worth a damn, which he kind of never has been.
It's funny that there's multiple people in WWE and outside of WWE that we could talk about when it comes to Jarrett, like the Roadie or Karen, or like.
Yeah, they always attach someone to him, and he still never it never amounts to anything.
I'll talk about the Roadie. I mean, life imitates art, and that Jarrett gone, Roadie
yeah,
stays.
That was the very first thing I thought of. We'll talk about that on the hot tags. The Roadie filling in. You ready again? Here's a name that some people I could see making an argument for. I'm not going to for a Mount Rushmore, but I could see some people being upset about me kind of dismissing so quickly. Paul Ellering. As part of the Road Warriors package, Paul Ellering, of course, is one of those iconic names. But I got 3 or 4 managers that I would put way above him.
I don't like Ellering wouldn't be in my Mount Rushmore either. I do want to acknowledge, huge part of the Road Warriors package was their legitimate business manager. So, kudos to him for really pulling that off. And I think they had a special bond, but I think ultimately there's more out there that are probably more iconic.
And it's not like him managing AOP is anything that's noteworthy either.
You got Johnny Polo on this list. And for the life of me, I will never think of Johnny Polo before I think of Raven.
That's true.
But he was a manager. He did manage the tag team champions. And I think he was marginally successful in a time where WWE as a whole was marginally successful, and definitely something I think helped him get to the next level as Raven, which is weird that ECW is the next level, but for Raven it was. And that's about all I can say about Johnny Polo.
I'm going to rapid fire a couple names. You stop me if you think there's something to talk about. Best or worst kind of range. Beulah McGillicuddy. Francine.
Best non-WWE.
Great looking valet. Great ECW valet.
Well, I'll tie these together then. We got it's Beulah McGillicuddy and Francine are basically
right.
1A and 1. Basically the heel and the babyface. Top valets in ECW. And I think that, again, they were primarily eye candy characters, but Beulah had a bit more about her in terms of the connection with Tommy Dreamer and initially being brought in with Raven. She was used as a pivotal part of storylines, and I think Francine actually was too, definitely towards the later part of ECW as well. But she was tied to pretty much every top wrestler at one point or another during ECW's time. So I think they're both in contention for a non-WWE one.
There's a lot of people in the ECW thing. I didn't even write some of them down, but I'm remembering now off the top of my head some names that are on that valet list of just, that's what they were in ECW. It was like, let's get sometimes even, and what would you call it for the YouTube algorithm? An adult entertainment star, like a Jasmine St. Clair, or you look at a name like Kimona Wanalea, they didn't stay away from that as much as,
I'm sure they had Jenna Jameson appear at some point as well.
So, those names to me, they're worst valet, who cares? They're just TNA. Missy Hyatt.
I don't know enough about her, really.
That's a name that went around a long time.
Again, ECW, I know she managed the Sandman for a while, yeah.
Missy's iconic. Missy arguably laid the groundwork for Sunny, but I don't think we know enough about her personally to be able to put her on any specific list. If she was, she'd easily be on the best non-WWE valet. But because she is that good and that iconic, I just don't know enough. I haven't seen enough.
Some other random ones here. Oliver Humperdinck.
Was only there for about a year and not very memorable one way or the other.
Yeah. Teddy Long, I know him, of course, way more as the general manager of SmackDown than as
Teddy
a manager.
Long managing Doom is quite the hell of a package. He never really broke through as a manager. For my own childhood, I really enjoyed the Rodney Mack 3-minute White Boy Challenge. I also enjoyed when he briefly managed Mark Jindrak as the Reflection of Perfection. I'm sure I'm the only one that remembers that, though.
He managed Mark Henry.
Managed Mark Henry, same deal as the Rodney Mack type of thing.
Yeah, Jazz as well.
Good for what he did, but never got to do anything amazing.
And I'm just thinking Mark Henry also had Tony Atlas as a manager. That was not great.
Yeah, that's not a good one. I don't know if it's one of the worst ones, but it's definitely not good.
I'd potentially put it under one of the worst because he wasn't useful at all. And that just reminded me of Abraham Washington, a guy who got fired during
bad.
during a managerial spot. Got him fired. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't put him under the worst because I actually thought that he was kind of funny. Like, but he's somebody that just a name that just came to my mind. We got Davari. We got Ricardo Rodriguez, who...
He's not a manager. He's an announcer.
He was a ring announcer, and he was damn good at it.
He's one of those characters that's sort of just... He's kind of a guy, He's not, like, worst or anything. Jose Lothario is a big part...
Worst.
I was going to say, he's a big part of the Shawn Michaels story that I never liked.
Maybe one of the worst things they ever did.
It's just that he was just so lacking in character and personality that you put him right next to. I'm sure like the argument was that because he was so drab that it would almost make Shawn look better because it's kind of like he's so flamboyant and full of personality to put him next to a guy who looks really boring. To make him seem even more flamboyant, but it actually helped suck some of the life out of Michaels. It probably contributed to the fact that his run as champion actually isn't that fondly remembered.
Here's what I'll say: like, I think that type of angle works a lot better in today's WWE, where people are more knowledgeable about the history of stuff. Nobody cared that this guy trained Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels was a prick, and people enjoyed that about him, and you're trying to actively make him a likable guy, and that, to me, never worked.
What else we got on this list? Maurice. She's more of just a wrestler herself, but she's basically just been a valet for The Miz.
Maurice as a valet for The Miz, I think, is one of the greatest packages they've ever given The Miz, and they've tried a lot of things for The Miz, but I think nothing works better than when they put him with Maurice.
I wouldn't go Mount Rushmore for her. Yeah, but I if we're going like modern day valets, I'd Mount Rushmore her, but we're not specifying that. Matt Stryker, we got for some reason I have Grand Wizard written down twice.
That good.
Kevin Sullivan.
Sullivan's weird, but he's like it's a good kind of weird in terms of just you would attach him to acts like the Dungeon of Doom and it would work because he would have this almost satanic quality to him.
Would you guys classify Virgil a valet?
No, he's a bodyguard.
Because bodyguard could be valet.
He's like a henchman. Yeah, I guess maybe more so. I mean, I don't think he was really there to make DiBiase look good.
I mean, he certainly wasn't a manager, that's for sure. And obviously,
he said it wasn't the brains of the operation.
Yeah, obviously the plan was to have him be the bodyguard and be the guy that stands beside DiBiase while he's the main character, and they do the whole turn and everything like that. I mean, I wouldn't Mount Rushmore valet him.
Well, do we need a category of henchmen because like Chyna's a henchwoman?
Maybe. Let me put that off on the side here. Just
bodyguard slash henchman or henchwoman because. I mean, Nicole Bass fits more into that category as well.
Yeah. See, but then if we're gonna do that, then I have to say Diesel. If we're gonna talk about Mount Rushmore bodyguards, I think Diesel belongs there.
I could see an argument for it.
China's fantastic. You're not going to get me to say a single bad thing about China as what she brought to the package of Hunter and Sean and all that, because I've been doing a 97 Raw rewatch, and she's fantastic. And absolutely, I'd Mount Rushmore her in terms of bodyguards.
Yeah. To sort of like clarify on this side of things as well. So a bodyguard is someone who is actively there to protect and take physical damage for the wrestler. Whereas a manager might take a bump every now and again. The bodyguard is strictly there to beat up people on the behalf of the person they're bodyguarding.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, do we have to throw in Mr. Hughes back in the conversation?
No.
Well, I
still wouldn't be.
I also think they're probably better bodyguards than Mr. Hughes.
I would think I would put Virgil and China definitely on the bodyguard list. And I'd put Diesel as a maybe, and then I don't know about a fourth yet.
Yeah, we'll see what other ones appear. I mean, you got Commander Aziz.
Yeah, he's not on that. That's for sure.
Yeah,
he's big. You know, I mean,
yeah.
Some other people
not
aren't.
a lot of bodyguards are. Yeah.
How long has this fucking joke been going on? 3 years now?
To be fair, I'd say as long as he's still employed, but really it will just keep going until... Like,
no matter what, we're always going to see him and say he's big.
There was the Evolve show, right? That was on the network?
It was the 2019 Evolve show.
2019, Christ.
And you had just written, Babatunde's big, Colby Carino isn't. And it was...
Is that literally what I still have written down here? Let me see on that. What was it? Evolve
10-year anniversary show.
Let me see if I can find that on here. That's Bleacher Report. I can't seem to find it real fast.
Well, while he's looking for it, let's talk about a name that is one of the better ones outside of WWE. James J. Dillon, one of the Four Horsemen.
On a non-WWE list, I'm pretty sure he has to go on there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The manager of the most iconic faction of all time. So yeah.
Also managed Kamala. Also managed Nature Boy Buddy Landau before he's managing the real Nature Boy, which is just tremendous. He's definitely one of my favorites. He's someone that I've grown to love while doing more research. Now, as we look more at this list, what would you say about Armando Estrada? Like, I kind of just throw him in the whatever pile. Like, he was never going to be a big deal, but I think he did good in that time.
I found it on the website. It's Evolve 131 pay-per-view prediction. Special challenge match. Babatunde versus Colby Carino. Babatunde is huge. Colby Carino isn't. Prediction. Babatunde wins. And then under the review, result. Babatunde wins by pinfall. Thoughts. Babatunde is huge. Colby Carino isn't. That's the in-depth conversation you can get on smarkcamo.com.
Going back to Estrada and I guess the program itself, it's just I don't think he's not really that noteworthy. I don't think he's like a footnote in history.
I'm looking through this list right now, trying to figure out if there are any other ones that can kind of be classified a manager or a bodyguard for the manager.
I've got two. I've got two for bodyguards. Big Boss Man. He's kind of like the bodyguard of the corporation. I know he's still wrestling technically, but that was kind of his role for a while. And then again, not a WWE one, but 911 from ECW.
I don't even remember 911.
He's a good bodyguard for Heyman.
Yeah, essentially, all his role in ECW was just chokeslamming people.
So I'm looking at this. There's a list of just bodyguards. Different one. It's like Luke Gallows, Big E, Test, Umaga. I wouldn't like Ezekiel Jackson was technically, I guess, a bodyguard for the Brian Kendrick, but no.
See, I think actually you're looking at that list, and they're actually people that were like professional bodyguards before becoming
Oh yeah. Let's see. There's Diesel. There's Virgil, Batista, Sid was a bodyguard for a short amount of time.
Big E for Dolph Ziggler for a bit.
Like Tyson's on this list.
If E would have continued, I think E before the New Day, I was ready to go. Well, he was better as a bodyguard than he was as a single. Yeah, I saw Tyrus on that list of bodyguards.
I'm seeing a thing on here that I think we could potentially go with the idea of just kind of a little asterisk. APA.
I mean, they never really managed.
They were never like directly the bodyguard for anyone, though.
They were a bodyguard service. They could be the bodyguard for anybody.
Well, speaking of which, what about J&J Security?
I don't know. they wouldn't go on it for me.
J&J Security were great. They were an excellent act.
They were a good act.
They weren't good bodyguards, but they were like an action. But they were bodyguards who managed Seth Rollins in an entertaining way. Like they just weren't good at their job.
Bodyguards / stooges, and it was great.
I don't think the bodyguard necessarily has to be a good bodyguard.
It's true. Yeah. That is true.
As long as they're fun. I would lean towards maybe, like the ones that, if you want to do the APA, but ones stream survival, like the Boss Man, J&J Security, Sid maybe.
I'd put Diesel over Sid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Diesel's over Sid, yeah, definitely.
So I think Diesel could be our...
I don't know where I class the APA, they were just for hire, pretty much. But I guess that could work.
I'd put either APA or J&J above Big Boss Man, because Boss Man, I feel, was just another guy in the group.
I mean, I personally like J&J, just because I just don't think the APA were actual managers, whereas they were attached to Seth Rollins. So
that is true. They were more specifically bodyguards for somebody rather than a tag team act that could kind of fuck around. Yeah, I mean, we can settle on that. Potentially put J&J in that list right now. We still have plenty of other things to talk about with like.
Well, while we're here, though, I do want to point out again. Look at the amount of different lists we're giving you. Look at the amount of work we're doing. $1 on Patreon is not that much to ask
for a month. That's the thing. $1 a month. This is just one podcast. We got another hot tags coming up for this week. We got the Dark Cast coming up. We got all the ones that came out, like the top rope list we did, and the mock draft stuff that we are taking care of and all that. You got plenty of pay-per-view content coming. Man, this coming up pay-per-view stint, we're going to do 3 pay-per-views over the course of 2 days. I have like 9 podcasts that week. That's insane. Yeah, so $1 a month. Just saying.
But let's get to some of the meat of the matter. Let's talk about someone who's probably going to be on the top of the list and make the Mount Rushmore of the overall managers, and that's Paul Heyman.
Paul Heyman's a guarantee.
Paul Heyman is a fucking man.
Paul Heyman is.
But should we create another one for advocates?
And just have him on it.
Yeah.
He is an advocate. He is the wise counsel for the tribal chief.
He's the special counsel to the tribal chief. He's the wise man. He's all of those things, and then I think that's even forgetting the fact that he was a great manager as Paulie Dangerously. The Dangerous Alliance is one of the coolest things pre-Nitro WCW ever did. And then you think about the fact that he's managed Kurt Angle, Big Show, Steve Austin, Rick Rude, Arn Anderson. I mean, Paul Heyman is it. In every conceivable way.
He is also so iconic as a manager that there's a term related for that. You figure the Heenan family is a wide enough range thing. You could also say, I'm a Paul Heyman guy. And that is indicative of he is a manager. I want him to be my manager, that thing. To the point that it's not even a fake thing. Like Roman Reigns legitimately is like, I want this fucking guy to be my manager.
I never want to work without Paul Heyman ever again.
That's crazy. The 2 biggest stars that have been in this company for the past decade. 10 years are like, Heyman is glue for me. He is without a doubt a guaranteed Mount Rushmore person. To the point that I would just say, like, I mean, he's fully locked in just for, he would have been locked in from the very start. If I wouldn't have gone with Paul Heyman, I would have gone with the Bobby Heenan thing. That would have been the other one. I would have been like, look, we know we're going to put him in there. Another name that I would say is pretty much a guarantee. There's two. All right, I'll just do it this way. This is kind of an easy way to do this. I got 3 names that I separated that I'm like, look, these are going in there somewhere, and we can kind of bounce around here. Jim Cornette, Jimmy Hart, and Sensational Sherri.
Yeah.
Like Hart and Cornette definitely under the manager side. Sherri, manager / valet. I'd be willing to put her more into the valet side to make sure that she gets on a list and then have that spot open for the manager
and then have
thing.
Hart and Cornette. I mean, let's break those down first. Start with Jimmy Hart. This dude managed every single tag team. I don't care if you name the tag team, they were probably at some point managed by Jimmy Hart. The Nasty Boys, the Hart Foundation, the Rougeos, Money Inc., Natural Disasters. Hogan was managed by this guy. That's all the stuff he did after being, the anchor of every single main event angle in Memphis while he was there, because he was managing against Lawler when he wasn't managing Lawler. He was integral in the Andy Kaufman thing. Jimmy Hart, and then he made all of our favorite theme songs. I mean, this guy is professional wrestling. I love Jimmy Hart. I think he's absolutely on the Mount Rushmore. The airbrush jackets are iconic.
The megaphones
are iconic.
Let me tell you something, baby.
Yeah, the voice, the mullet, the glasses, the whole package. Jimmy Hart is what a professional wrestling manager is.
He's an anomaly. This fucking guy barely ages. That's one thing. And he eats apparently baked potatoes and baked beans, and that's it. And he's like his late 60s, maybe 70s. I'm not entirely sure. He's got the energy of a fucking 12-year-old. I don't know how he does it. He's a fucking great person. All across the board. He is literally. What's that?
It'll make you feel weird out by what you said. He's about to be 80.
80?
Oh my god!
God damn, that's awesome for him. Like, this guy is he's iconic, as iconic as you can get, and he's of course carried over into the idea of like, okay, real life managing. Like, he is legitimately a manager for Hulk Hogan in many different ways. He has just like this laundry list of places he's worked and people he's worked with and whatever. He's a guarantee for me.
The Beatles off the chart with the Gentry. I mean, like, Jimmy Hart he's got to be on the Mount Rushmore. Wow.
And somebody like Jim Cornette, you may disagree with the way that he says things. I know there's plenty of ideas that he's tossed out there that I disagree with. There's plenty that I agree with. He is a very controversial person. Fucking amazing to listen to on his podcast sometimes with the rants that he goes on to, even if you disagree with him. A great person to like as far as entertainment value goes. I mean, James E. Cornette with the tennis racket, and I'm of course a product of the new generation era, so Camp Cornette. I know that I'm not the only person to say this too, so I'm not going to feel like a complete fucking idiot. I am not the only person in the world that thought that his first name was Camp for a short time frame. That his name was just Camp Cornette, and it's like, oh, it's managed by Camp Cornette, and I'm like, all right, well, I mean, he's got a tennis racket. I guess Camp is his name or something. But I know more than one person has told me that they thought the same thing, so I'm not too crazy. This isn't one of those.
I like that your justification for his name being Camp is that he has the tennis racket.
Yeah, like Ugg from Salute Your Shorts or something. But this is one of those Ricky Steamboat and Tito Santana are the same guy kind of moments. So James E. Cornette, outside of WWE, of course, he had a whole career when it comes to that. But Jim Cornette in WWE, fucking fun character with Yokozuna and all these other people, with Vader and all that. He's I could see people making an argument that maybe not necessarily he would be in the top 4 or whatever, and you could put Paul Bearer in there instead. He would be the one that I would be like, all right, it's one of those two kind of for my range, but I would probably lean more towards Jim Cornette. I don't know.
like, if he's not in the overall, which I think he should be, he's definitely in the non-WWE, because his run with the Midnight Express is so legendary before you even touch any of the WWE stuff he did, which is largely regarded in retrospect as kind of crap compared to what he did before then. The run in Mid-South and Crockett with the Midnight Express, the tennis racket, like we're talking about Jimmy Hart with the megaphone, the tennis racket, the whiny voice, the perfect, oh, I'm just a rich kid, my mama bought me everything. It's what you look for in a manager, because fans think they can beat the shit out of this guy, and a lot of them tried. And
he took bumps for people. He
blew out his knees falling off a scaffold. Like,
he ordered a goddamn
Cornette's
roast beef sandwich with a double menu. Double mayo, double cheese.
Cornette's up there, man. Like, when you think about a manager's manager, you got to think Cornette. Also, another guy who legitimately managed the stuff for the Midnight. Like, he's definitely someone who I think is in the discussion, and maybe definitely a lock.
Now, when it comes to Sherri, we talked about this before. Sherri, iconic, of course, which managed multiple different people, everything from being, the antithesis of Miss Elizabeth for Macho Man, and the whole Macho King and all that, to even in WCW, I mean, part of Harlem Heat. Like, that's something that's like, you can't skip on some of these things, You can say, hey, it's not, Mount Rushmore worthy for her to come back and be a part of the Kurt Angle thing necessarily, but, she was instrumental in making Shawn Michaels who he became, just because, we wouldn't have the Sexy Boy theme without Sensational Sherri, and Jimmy Hart too. I think he made that right.
Yep.
I would say, though, I would lean more towards Sherri being a valet than a manager, if not just to make sure that she was on that valet list. And
then Cornette gets on the manager list.
Or even Cornette being on the non-WWE and Paul Bearer being on the WWE.
Definitely worth the discussion of it. I've gushed about Sherri in many, many podcasts. I think that there were so many people. Hulk Hogan enjoyed working with Sherri because whatever she did got a reaction. There's that crazy promo with her and Savage and Zeus, and she's running around the cage. And again, a lot about what we're talking about here, a lot of what I'm enjoying here is just the character work these people do. It's incredible. And Sherri definitely belongs on the valet list, if not just the overall manager list.
There's a case to be made that she would be on the regular manager list for sure. Where are you standing on these names, Callum?
I don't really have, honestly, too strong an opinion on either Cornette or Jimmy Hart, because I wasn't watching at the time where they were actually quote-unquote managers. The most I know of Jim Cornette is, obviously I know a lot about Jim Cornette based on just him being a podcast and him being a personality and a wrestling historian, but it's more him being an authority figure in TNA is probably the thing that I know most for. Jimmy Hart, again, he was kind of out of managing by the time that I was watching. More often than not, he would come back with like legend appearances and stuff like that, and would always be carrying the megaphone. I do appreciate a manager with props.
Yeah,
like megaphone, tennis racket, urn,
cell phone for Paulie.
Yeah, cell phone, anything like that. Like we need more managers that have something that they carry which makes them distinctive. But I'm totally down with you guys pushing for them to be part of the Mount Rushmore. It's just I don't have much to add on that front. With Sherri, again, just to push her more into the valet side of things, even though I do think that what she did was more of a managerial role. I think that in order to ensure that she does get a spot on a top Mount Rushmore is probably the right move to make, because she was very characterful and added a lot to some people at the time, which you could argue were lacking a bit of character. Like Michaels was just coming out of the Rockers, and the Rockers were very generic bland tag team, and she helped give him that Heartbreak Kid personality. So I think that, yeah, she's definitely someone who should be on one of the top Mount Rushmores.
You know, a manager that had a really good prop? Mr. Fuji. I just had to bring it up.
You talking about the hat or the sword?
Yes. The flag as well.
Not as good of a hat as Oddjob's.
Yeah. No, I mean, Oddjob, he's got at least one more kill count.
That we know of.
Check out the Review to a Kill series on Fanboys Anonymous for more Oddjob discussion. I'm pretty sure Mount Rushmore of our henchmen. You know, he at least should have been if we didn't pick him for that. Yeah, that's right. We did Mount Rushmore for Bond stuff, for anybody that's wondering. There's legitimately like 7 episodes or something of the Mount Rushmore of different Bond things after doing 26 different episodes of that. Such a great series. I missed that one.
Just while you're running through those ones as well, I kind of stumbled across, well, both a bodyguard and then just a potential another bodyguard, and then just a wide discussion about a promotion which you haven't really brought up too much yet, which is AEW, who's kind of led the way in the manager revival almost in recent times, where, well, obviously can mention a few people under that list. I don't know if any of them will be on the Mount Rushmore overall, but worth discussing at the very least. But the bodyguard that I had in mind, and you might not agree with this now considering where he is in his career, but Wardlow.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't Mount Rushmore him necessarily, but Wardlow was a great bodyguard for MJF. I don't know. It's kind of...
Would you supplant J&J Security? Because I kind of would with Wardlow.
Yeah, it sounds kind of odd to say because he is such a brand new person, but at the same time, Wardlow helped.
Diesel was only a bodyguard for like half a year, something like that.
And Wardlow was this person that they brought in as this MJF bodyguard, legitimately brought in as a bodyguard character to the point that he needed to win his freedom. He has improved after all this time. People were fucking going crazy for him as a bodyguard. He's beating the living hell out of people. I could see an argument for it. Yep. That seems so crazy to just be like, oh, Wardlow, yeah. But like,
And then just looking at like just the wider remit of AEW managers. I mean, you have Stokely Hathaway, who's great, but I think he's someone who potentially could be given more exposure and more time. Again, his time in NXT was pretty much completely wasted. So
yeah, Malcolm Bivens for an NXT manager thing, where you're talking about like Robert Stone, and you're talking about God, I'm blanking on some of the other people. Lana. I mean, Lana was part of NXT and WWE, but we'll talk about her, I guess. Malcolm Bivens, of course, one of the more prominent NXT managers, but he didn't really get a chance to flex his muscles, and he's better than that, I think.
Robert Stone is still there, and he's barely getting a chance to flex his muscles.
I'd almost add him to one of the worst as well.
I like him.
From a kayfabe perspective. Well, yeah, but from a kayfabe perspective, he's one of the most
He hasn't done anything, that's true.
Time.
Yeah. What about MVP?
Very, very good manager. Obviously, I wouldn't play Mount Rushmore, but he's a great talker.
He has helped save Bobby Lashley's career, arguably helped reboost Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander when they could have gotten released. Yeah, the Hurt Business was great. I don't know why the fuck Vince was like, all right, well, we had enough of that. People are liking it, But he's not doing great for Omos right now, I gotta say.
I think that's more Omos.
Yeah.
Isn't great, and MVP is just sort of with him.
We haven't even really seen Omos in the past few weeks. I'm wondering if Triple H is just sort of like, look, it's not working out.
I think they're just doing, as I said, like maybe a cycle thing where it's like Omos gets to fight a couple of jobbers one week, and then Veer gets to fight a number of jobbers the next week, and that's basically what they do now, because they still, I guess, generate some interest for like really casual viewers that have absolutely no idea kind of what WWE is, but see like a 7-foot guy beating up a load of small guys and find that mildly entertaining. That's kind of what their roles are now.
We got to see that amazing triple threat match between Commander Aziz, Omos, and Veer, of just they all beat the crap out of each other and one of them survives. What else we got on this list? Iron Sheik was a manager for a little bit.
Not good. Well, he's entertaining, but it's like he's not really. I wouldn't never want him to be talking for someone else.
Yeah, the General Adnan stuff. All that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
People get in the mix there. Charmel is a name we haven't talked about. I don't know. I mean, I could see people if a different era. I could see people being like, "Oh my God, she was a great valet and all that." She's not really somebody who I would necessarily put on that list over some other people, but she's big for her rather short stint.
Yeah, she was fine. I mean, the Queen Charmel thing with the King Booker stuff was good. I can't really think of Charmel without thinking of that match in TNA.
Ugh.
So
motherfucking
maybe
worst.
for that reason alone. I mean, for that reason alone, I'd say don't put her in, and also for a very similar reason, don't put Shelly Martinez on anything in the good side either.
Salinas in is that her name in TNA?
Yeah.
And she was Ariel in WWE.
She wasn't Selena. She was Rosita.
No,
Rosita was
that was Thea Trinidad.
Yeah, Zelina.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
because it was Sarita and Rosita.
Zelina, I think it's interesting because like she won't get on the top managers one, but I don't want to class her as a valet. She was a manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was way more of a manager than a valet, Zelina.
Yeah. But she's definitely on the higher end, but she won't get on the Mount Rushmore, unfortunately.
Not that we necessarily need to make a separate list for this, but I'd say as far as like some more of like the more modern type things, Zelina and Lana to me would be two that would be like, all right, Zelina was great for what she did. Lana was very instrumental to Rusev. It's some other names that on this list that I just forgot that we didn't talk about. Would you classify a valet as somebody, or would you classify a whole separate category of main squeeze for Luna Vachon?
I think Luna is tremendous.
I loved the Luna and Bam Bam package, but she's not under my Mount Rushmore valets compared to some of the other people. The main squeeze. I always thought that was funny. Sable was an instrumental character for a time frame where it was like to show off the switch from she was a valet for Hunter Hearst Helmsley. She ends up being saved by Wildman Mark Marrow. She's the valet for Wildman. He becomes a real douchebag character. She breaks away from him. She becomes her own big star, bigger than what Mark Marrow ever was able to achieve. I mean, Sable as a valet.
No.
I would say she's potential. I'd say she's got potential.
She's got potential because she was a big character for that. She didn't really do much.
She didn't get anyone over and do anything.
That's the point. Well, that's the point. What did Miss Elizabeth ever do?
Right. That's the argument I was going to make. She never cut a promo.
She added to the Savage package at least.
Oh, Sable definitely added to the Mark Marrow package.
With Mark Marrow, I think it was just.
Well, no, she didn't add to the Mark Marrow.
We need to get rid of the other guy.
But she generated more viewers than Mark Marrow ever could.
Yeah.
I mean, granted.
I mean, what about Marlena, Terry Runnels?
Yeah, Terry Runnels. Right. No, Marlena.
Marlena, yeah, definitely. Out of the two characters, yeah, Marlena is more prominent.
Back in the day, just as far as like, look, we got to be perfectly honest. This is one of those things that's part of that discussion. And if anybody says that we're being like rude or piggish or something for saying it, it's, that's just a matter of fact. Valets, by and large, typically are, as we've said before, about eye candy. And in that era of Sunny and Sable and Marlena, and then, you eventually brought in some other people like Tori, like Tori, not Tori Wilson, where it was like, look, hot girl. Look at hot girl. That's basically what they were doing. Marlena for, a preteen kind of Tony. I thought Marlena was way more eye-catching than so many of the other people that were out there. And Sunny, of course, was my main, instance for that. But like, I was more of a Marlena guy than a Sable guy.
Really, I'm a little surprised by that.
There was something about Marlena that I was just like, all right, I get it. She's sexy. And Goldust's character, of course, it was like so fucking weird because it was just like, what is this character? Why is he talking about movies? And he's got this random wig that he throws, and he's very androgynous is the word that they always used back then and everything. But like the Marlena character never made sense to me, but I was always intrigued, and not just based off of her looks. I was always just like, is she the director behind the scenes? Is she doing that? Because she was sitting on the director's chair and all that.
That was the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, I thought that was an engaging character. Terry Runnels by herself and the whole Terry tag team thing and all that, I wasn't watching for that. But I mean, Terry Runnels, of course, didn't stop being attractive once they stopped the Marlena thing. But that side of things, nah. The Marlena thing, I'd at least B-tier her, I think.
I think she has potential. I think that actually the more that we discussed it as well, I kind of think we need to include Trish in discussion for Ballet as well.
Yeah.
I'll add her down on the list.
Just think that she did too much and managed too many people in the short stint of time that she was just a pure valet to not be recognized for it.
Here's the name we haven't talked about yet. Vicky Guerrero.
It's obviously divisive figure in terms of, but it's like fantastic heel, absolutely brilliant heel, and the stuff that she would do with. I mean, realistically, when she became a valet, it was realistically only for Dolph, pretty much, in WWE. Oh, obviously Eric Escobar, but we don't like talking about that. And
Jack Swagger was there.
Yeah, Jack Swagger was there as well. So, but that was kind of all she really. I mean, she managed a couple of the women occasionally, like Lake Hall and stuff like that. But she
managed Big Show.
Yeah, but she didn't really manage Edge or Big Show because she was general manager at that point. So that was kind of like she was there alongside them, but that her role wasn't a manager; it was a general figure. That's
by the way, for anybody who's wondering, that does not mean that we're doing general managers on this. That's semantics of that. If everybody goes, "Oh, they're assistant manager," no, that doesn't count.
And obviously, her managerial run in AEW has not been particularly successful.
No, I think it's been garbage.
Yeah, so definitely not Mount Rushmore, but she was great at her peak. She was great.
Yeah, she's somebody that I can't Mount Rushmore in like any kind of real serious capacity compared to some of these other ones that we have on our list, but figure she's worth talking about. Also would say this, it might sound negative. I don't want to put her down under worst because she's not the worst or anything, but what a disappointment it was for Paige to be a manager. When she had that whole thing with Mandy Rose and...
she wasn't even going to be a manager there. I think the only time she was ever actually just straight up a manager was the Kabuki Warriors.
That too. But like, whenever they tried to give her some kind of a manager spot, it didn't work. She's somebody who like, yeah, Paige...
They didn't give her anything to sink her teeth into. Though.
Like, her career went in the complete fucking opposite direction of where it should have gone just because of her injuries and other things. Like, this is not how it should have played out. This is some worse timeline type stuff. But she's not like worse. She's not, fucking Babu or something. Oh God, you know what that Babu just reminded me of? Sakamoto. Fuck me.
I mean, that was very, very short lived, but
for reasons,
not great.
Was he a manager or was he a valet?
He was a punching bag.
Babu.
Yeah, I'd say he's on the level of Babu, whatever you want to class Babu as.
Do we need a separate thing for like the alternative of bodyguard, which is manservant? Oh, you know what? I'm gonna make it, so I can do it.
Well, yeah. Then you can fit in Babu and Sakamoto, and I'd probably say Ricardo Rodriguez fits into that as well.
Yeah, Ricardo.
But none of these are any good.
No, these are the worst.
Well, yeah, but what we're going to come up with a best and worst manservant?
We don't think. I don't think we need to.
I can't think of any good manservants there have been.
No, I don't think we need to make a worst and best.
Technically, if you want to go with that.
Yeah,
he's more a manservant than he's a bodyguard.
You definitely fits the Venn diagram.
This is so fucking stupid sometimes. I love it. Currently have 7 lists going up right now of like possible ranges of this. All right, that means we need to settle on some of these things.
Oh, hang on, we're going to finish up some other things on like the non-WWE.
Like non-WWE, yeah. We got like
so you have some people listed there like Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Taz,
Jake Roberts, Taz, Major Guns, and WCW.
Oh, right, she's definitely like one of the. I'd say worst valets. You're looking at for WCW side of things. You're looking at Major Guns and Gorgeous George.
I couldn't tell you anything that they did, and I couldn't also tell you anything that Pamela Paulshock did.
Well, she was an interviewer.
That's what she was?
She wasn't a valet. Yeah.
Ah, all right, well, there you go. That's how little I know about Pamela Paulshock.
I know she was like really at the back end of WCW, and then I think she was early TNA as well. If
we're still doing, do we fill out the worst managers?
We didn't quite settle on things. Oh God, what was her name before I forget it? The WCW girl, Medaja. That's
she's
what
definitely
it was?
not one. She's definitely not one of the worst. She just
existed
Scott,
to be.
Yeah, she was just alongside Scott Steiner. So I don't think she's one of the worst. Gorgeous George and Major Guns are far more like.
Listen,
bad,
I don't know how many chances I'll get to say this name on a podcast, but worst manager Mortimer Plumtree.
Who?
Mortimer
Plumtree?
I'm struggling to remember that one off the top of my head.
Manager of the Johnsons.
Oh, right, that guy.
Right, go ahead and look up Mortimer Plumtree and the Johnsons, Tony.
This guy looks like Stiff Breeze could knock him out.
Yeah, I don't know whether he's left any kind of lasting enough impression on wrestling for him to be.
Hey, look at the Johnsons.
I'd say you could potentially class a Oh yeah, that was also you see image there of that's not him, but that's Ryan Shamrock with the Maestro.
Oh, good lord.
So yeah, she was bad in that role as well. But you class maybe potentially as a bad manager, Vince Russo as well.
I don't even know if I would classify him as a bad manager.
Yeah. Maybe not. I know that there's all these lists going on and everything, but yeah, I would say if we're looking to now just kind of narrow down, because we're already about like what
hour and a half in here.
Hour and a half in, yeah,
almost 2 hours.
Yeah, probably want to start nailing down these ones then.
Well, the reason
we only mentioned things like Freddie Blassie or Arnold Scarlett and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we just can't get around to everyone.
Talk about Freddie Blassie, one of the most notable wrestlers of his day, and I think as WWE was transitioning into the global phenomenon, he was a very important heel manager. I mean, he did manage Cheek in the Garden with Hogan, didn't he? He also managed Hogan.
Yeah, but then you have like your Arnold Scarlett, who's the main manager of Bruno Sammartino. Got Grand Wizard as well. People of that era who are just people that I'm sure people of a different generation to us would probably prioritize as top managers, but ones that our lack of familiarity probably impinges us from including them on a Mount Rushmore list.
Right.
Yeah, I always hear about Grand Wizard, but I don't know if I've seen much of anything he did.
I honestly can't even tell you what Grand Wizard looks like. That's how little I know.
He's got a turban on his head.
A really cool look.
Yeah, he had this these really how would you describe it? Luminous jackets and stuff like that, like reflective and stuff like that. He was.
I mean, you'll look at it and you'll see.
Very unique look.
Okay, well,
firstly, don't search for the Ku Klux Klan.
I just typed Grand Wizard in on.
Type in WWF after Grand Wizard.
Yeah, you might need to do that because Grand Wizard just by itself, pretty sure that would be the worst. You just go. Oh man, that's a terrible name to have. Yeah, I couldn't have picked this guy out of a crowd.
I think it's a really cool look. Like, no one had that kind of flash in those days. And look, he managed WWF champion Billy Graham.
That dude from Star Trek had at least those goggles. Got a little fucking Cyclops thing going on here. What's that guy's name from I'm not a Star Trek guy.
Which one? Just like there's
the one with the visor.
You think the
you feel Cyclops from the X-Men?
No, I said the Cyclops like visor, the guy that Star Trek had. Yeah, he wasn't a part of the one with Kirk and all that. He was the other one with a Picard.
It's not Sulu, is it?
No, Sulu's a Kirk guy.
Okay.
I'm blanking. I had some Star Trek person's gonna be like, my God, this is one of the most iconic characters. Wait, is it a Geordie LaForge?
Yeah, oh my God, it is the Reading Rainbow guy. It's LeVar Burton.
Yeah, LeVar Burton. Yeah, I know him more as LeVar Burton. If you just said that. Yeah. Anyway, that's Mount Rushmore of Star Trek characters. So that I don't know.
But I would say just one more name to bring up for like potential non-WWE manager, Father James Mitchell.
Oh, I love the Sinister Minister.
Yeah, that's a name I am well aware of at this point. From just outside of WWE stuff.
NWA.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And he pops up in TNA every now and again. Still, like mainly involved in segments involving Rosemary.
As far as TNA was not something I was super well knowledgeable about or whatever, but I always disliked SoCal Val as far as Valets goes. I never understood why she was part of the roster. Just, I
mean, she was mainly just a ring girl, really. But the only time she got involved in the Valet stuff was with the Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt storyline.
We're still together.
Christy Hemme was like Valet for a while.
I like the Rock and Rave
infection.
Yeah. So it's hard to pick them all out, like, because you could look at who was that? Chelsea, wasn't it? That woman with
I liked her a lot. She would have been really good if they had gone anywhere with Desmond Wolfe. She ended up just pushing around Ric Flair's wheelchair.
Chelsea, Allison Skipper.
I don't think she did anything else.
No, she didn't really do much of anything.
I don't recognize her.
She's just sort of there to be with Desmond, and then his career slowly but surely just stopped.
Yeah, they did the thing where like she was managing Desmond Wolfe, but was kind of not super into him, and then they did a storyline where Abyss won her for 30 days, I think, or something like that.
TNA.
Yeah, I don't recognize her.
But yeah, that's but yeah, she wouldn't be like best or worst or anything. I'm just trying to think of names from outside of just the whole WWE bubble. But
we haven't talked about Baby Doll, and I think as a non-WWE valet, probably should. She was with Tully Blanchard.
Oh yeah,
his perfect 10. She eventually, they do the thing because of course it's wrestling where he starts abusing her. So Dusty saves her, and she eventually betrays him to go with Flair, which good package deal there. I would say she would be in consideration for a non-WWE valet.
Yeah, I'd say so as well.
I know we've been all over the place, but like this does cover so much ground,
Yeah.
Wrestling managers and valets, it's a lot of fun, honestly. It's one of those things where I really wish they would use them prominently. AEW has a lot, but they don't really use them prominently.
They've dwindled a little bit on that now. Arn Anderson not popping up, of course, without Cody. Tully Blanchard not seemingly in the mix anymore. Taz is no longer with the whole Team Taz thing. I haven't seen Jake Roberts in a long time. DDP stopped being a part of that, only here and there.
Yeah, it's mainly at the moment. It's
Smart
like
Mark.
Stokely halfway. Yeah, Smart Mark Sterling. I guess you class. Jericho occasionally, and
Don Callis is back.
Oh yeah, Don Callis is back. Yeah,
I wouldn't put the Jackal on any Mount Rushmore.
No, Jackal not on even WWE one or anything. Then that's the thing too. There's so many people that we can't.
New Japan that I know of as well.
Well, even just like WWE side, there's so many people that we can't even just talk about because it's like there's no point in talking about them, like the Jackal, or that we can't remember because they've been. Each year there could have been potentially 5 to 6 different managers that just, hey, this person was tried out as a manager for this, or, this person started to be a manager, then they became a wrestler, and there was a short time frame. Like, we're never going to be able to talk about all of them, but,
shout out to Miho Abe and Pita.
Oh, yeah. Miho Abe and Pita, yeah, definitely. Peter in particular.
Absolutely.
For New Japan valets, I mean, you can't get more iconic over these past bunch of years than what she's been able to do.
Yeah, and then just from the manager side of things on New Japan as well, you're looking at Gedo mainly, and one of the worst ones, Dick to Go.
Everybody loves Dick to Go.
Just for the sake of it, I trust you guys to figure this out more than I, because you've delved more into them. Would you think of an instinctive combo list of manager valet thing for New Japan or TNA or like that kind of thing, or maybe even just like for both if there are like that? Like, how do you spell Peter's name?
P-I-T-A?
P-I-E-T-E-R.
Oh,
P-I-E-T...
E-R.
E-O?
It's like Peter with just an I in it. No, Peter.
Oh, Peter.
Peter, like the name Peter.
Like Peter Griffin, but with an I in it.
Yeah.
She would be under the valet list or whatever. Is there like a...
There's not many. It's her and Miho Abe is kind of it. I guess you could say Maria Kanellis was there for a while. But there aren't many.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we didn't even talk about Maria. Maria was even in WWE.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, she was only a valet for Mike Kanellis in WWE because she never managed when in her first run, really. It was she's mainly there. She's mainly just been the manager of Mike Kanellis or Mike Bennett for his entire career in wherever he goes, Ring of Honor, TNA, WWE.
A lot better in that role than whenever she was doing the Airhead ring announcer.
But realistically, if you are looking at New Japan valets, it is literally Peter and Miho Abe, and then basically anybody else that Yujiro Takahashi brings on in his kind of equivalent of the Ho train, because he's the Tokyo pimp.
So is there even a fourth if we had those three and?
I'd say New Japan don't do women. That's the kind of thing. Until very recently, they don't have women's performers.
Yeah, so maybe we can't even necessarily do a list of that.
Not of valets. You could do like a mixed list of wrestlers, of managers and valets.
I would totally trust you two to figure out that list.
I mean, if it's a mix of, again, it would have to be fairly recent because I don't know people going like stretching back like years and years. I know obviously pretty much anybody in the US went over for New Japan. Anyone super prominent in the US went over to Japan for a stint every now and again in like the 70s and 80s. But in a more recent list, you're probably looking at Gedo, Peter, Miho Abe, and it would be a fourth one. Don't know if anyone one that's like more strictly a manager, because Dick to Go does wrestle. I mean, Gedo does wrestle as well, but like he very, very rarely. Yeah, Impact. I don't know. There aren't that many great valets in Impact.
Maybe
like
Hemi.
Karen Jarrett.
Karen
Jarrett sucked. Yeah, she sucked.
You put the beautiful people. You can't even really say they're valets because they weren't valets for anybody.
Yeah.
Don Callis is listed there. There's Mortimer Plumtree.
Yeah.
Rockstar Spud.
He was good.
That's a male valet if I've ever seen.
Yeah. I don't know if I really want to.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even need to really get into that. That's true.
It's taken long enough. It's taken long enough as it is. We haven't even confirmed all the ones we actually want to do.
Yes, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna say fuck New Japan and TNA, Impact, and even a separate AEW list because they haven't been around too long. Fuck them. We got enough lists. There you go. So we do have manager valet, worst manager, worst valet, non-WWE for both of those, without doing best and worst of non-WWE. Bodyguard and manservant, if we want to separate those things. Okay. Where do you guys want to start here? I guess maybe we should specify the difference between the bodyguard and the manservant thing, just because that's one of those random ass ones we've done.
Manservant is like Babu or Sakamoto.
It's someone who isn't there to protect the person. He's just there for the person to do essentially jobs for the person.
I'm gonna keep these in the thing. Best
I
bodyguard
would argue
/
that
worst.
J&J security would be like the middle circle in that Venn diagram between manservant and bodyguard. Like the Stooges were good manservants. Patterson and Briscoe.
We got the idea of the. I think that they're kind of almost equivalents of each other. So that's like the best and the worst. So we don't have to do worst bodyguard and best manservant, because basically that's what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. We got Babu, we got Sakamoto, we got Ricardo under the manservant list. Possibly Virgil. Possibly J&J. Wardlow, that kind of thing. I think we can pretty much probably rule out Big Boss Man and APA. I'm willing to have Wardlow under the best bodyguard and to put instead of Virgil under the worst manservant, have J&J under that as like the losers.
Well, that makes it, yeah, but it makes it feel like they were bad, which they weren't. They were great.
They were. I would say they were the best on the manservant side of things. They were worst bodyguard, but that also kind of made them good. It's weird.
I guess then how do we specify worst?
We can just call it our list of bodyguards and manservants, and just like have a mix of good and bad. Because realistically, I can't think of any other manservants outside of those four. So
yeah, we could just say Mount Rushmore of bodyguards, Mount Rushmore of manservants.
Yep.
And just the character wise, and we could do Virgil, China, Diesel, Wardlow for bodyguard, manservant, Babu, Sakamoto, Ricardo, J&J.
Cool with that?
Yeah.
All right, look at that. We got that sorted out.
Let's go get the worst out of the way.
Yeah, let's get the worst of the managers and valets. We got a couple written down here. These aren't under the worst. I don't want to have that confusing. I would say under the worst valets, we're all kind of in agreement of at least Mama Benjamin, Sapphire, and Mrs. Cleavage.
Absolutely. And then I would say Major Guns, just because.
Well, I'd say we haven't got listed under those ones. We haven't listed either Cherry or Nicole Bass.
We got Nicole
Cherry
Bass,
was so ineffective. I might say Cherry.
Ryan Shamrock.
Oh, Ryan Shamrock. Ryan Shamrock definitely should be. I'd put Ryan Shamrock over Mariana. Definitely.
I think I'd allow that.
And I don't know. I guess like Nicole Bass should be on a worst list.
See, I don't. My thing with that is like,
I don't know if I'd put her in valet though. I think she might kind of just fall into that void.
Okay, maybe. But then, yeah, it's whether we put Mariana or Gorgeous George. Because Gorgeous George was only in the company because she was Randy Savage's girlfriend at the time. But and she didn't really do. I guess she didn't do anything like super offensive besides just be there really. So I guess the whole Mrs. Cleavage is a bit is a bit terrible. But then again, she wasn't around for very long either.
I'd put Mrs. Cleavage over Gorgeous George, because that's like Gorgeous George. Okay, she's an attractive woman that stands there. Mrs. Cleavage is like, that's a really offensively bad character. I
guess so.
Mama Benjamin, Sapphire, Mrs. Cleavage, Ryan Shamrock.
Yep, we can do that.
Yeah.
It's Cherry. I mean, she sucked, but like, whatever. You know, she stood there. She roller skated. Whatever. She lasted longer in WWE than I thought she did.
Yeah. Worst managers we got
Oscar.
I'm totally Oscar being there.
You're cool with Oscar?
Yeah, I'm cool with Oscar. Kim Chi's dumb. Just a guy in a. Well, I don't know what you'd even class the mask that he wore as. I like Yamaguchi-san being there as well. No, it's just one of these other four. And I'd say probably you're looking at Lothario with that one, actually.
Ooh. Lothario could be a good pick for that because of how prominent they made that character.
Oh yeah,
and
he
it
was,
still
he was
sucked.
WWE Champions manager, and he sucked.
Yeah. I'd put him on the worst.
I could see that being a case. And it's supposed to be such a like an iconic thing and all that, but it's like it sucked.
It's legitimately like the worst thing Michaels did.
And Tony Atlas had that laugh at the very least.
It's like a seal. He always said Mock Henra as well. Mock Henra. At least he didn't get into the feet stuff.
That's a different list.
Okay.
Best and worst feet. So talk to Tony Atlas about that list. So we got non-WWE and WWE manager valet, possibly crossovers, that kind of thing.
So I'd say non-WWE. I like the fact that we got Gary Hart and JJ Dillon. I think they're definitely the best non-WWE managers, and I would add Jim Cornette to that one as well because I don't think actually Jim Cornette's managerial stuff in WWE was that great.
Yeah, I think Jim Cornette's better as a non-WWE person than WWE.
So that manager is officially WWE, the Mount Rushmore of WWE managers.
I think we could probably put it like that. I could also say
I can live with it.
I could say that would be the case even necessarily outside of that, but I could see an argument for people saying, and I mean I'm totally fine with this not being the case, but I could see on that non-WWE list we have Gary Hart, JJ Dillon, Jim Cornette. I could see people trying to make the case for Paul Ellering.
Ellering definitely has a potential, but I think there might be other options.
There are probably other options.
Who would you guys put down as potential fourth?
So you got James Mitchell's potential. I'd say that you've got. Trying to think of just what's definitely Paul Ellering should be in the conversation for it. I think there's an argument for Tully. I know it was short-lived, but I think his stuff in AEW was really good for the time that he was doing it. Trying to think of other ones. Kevin Sullivan, I think, is a definite shout as well. Anybody else sticking out to you, Rob?
Well, I would say that no, and with the list we have, I guess there is probably a better chance to throw in Paul Ellering.
Huh? Yeah. I was just gonna suggest somebody. I'm like, nah, they're WWE. Huh?
I mean, you can almost make the argument that like Scott D'Amore maybe, but I don't know if I'd put him in Mount Rushmore.
No, not just for Team Canada. I don't think.
Would that be like a spot for like a Skander Akbar or Grand Wizard or something that we would be like not necessarily
Grand Wizard
us?
would be WWE.
Yeah, he was pure
Akbar,
WWE.
maybe,
That's pure WWE.
Skander Akbar, there's an argument to be made there.
Oh, Harley Race.
Oh my God, the run with Vader. Yeah.
Harley Race could be a definite potential for that. That's
right.
Yeah,
that run with Vader. Shame on me. I was just watching some Sting versus Vader before you called me. Harley Race was so good in that role.
Trying to look up one more list to see if there's anybody.
Teddy Long, if you're ever gonna throw him on any list for a manager, it might be the outside WWE one.
I probably wouldn't lean too much into that. He's just when I think Teddy Long, I think first general manager and second referee.
Yeah, I don't think I'd put Teddy Long over some of these other ones like James Mitchell or Harley Race or Ellering.
I'd probably out of those ones, looking at them, I'd probably actually lean towards Paul Ellering. I think he has he was part of he managed probably the biggest act out of all those ones.
And he hit like AWA, WCW. He does do
as the next
bit in WWE, and the Authors of Pain as well. Absolutely.
I guess maybe even just because it's like outside of because he wasn't as big of a deal in WWE for the Road Warriors, but outside of it, he definitely was.
It does kind of strike me with the fact that if you want to be a good manager, you kind of need to be called Paul.
That is true. There's Paul Bearer, Paul Heyman, Paul Ellering.
Admittedly, that's not Paul Bearer's actual name. So
yeah.
Let that be a lesson, though. If you want your name, if you want to be famous, you better get a gimmick name with Paul.
If you want to be famous in wrestling, because you got Paul White, you got Paul Levesque.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Pauls out there. Pamela Paulshock, I guess, technically speaking. I brought that name up. I'd be cool with that.
Cool Paul.
Gary Hart, JJ Dillon, Jim Cornette, Paul Ellering for the non-WWE list. That sounds about right.
Yeah. And then I'm kind of pretty okay with the manager list that we have for WWE side of things as well.
Yeah, manager list for WWE being Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Paul Heyman, Paul Bearer. That sounds about right, too.
And the valets, we've got Elizabeth, Sherri, Stacy. Are we locking in, Stacy?
Let's see.
There's a few options to these ones.
We know at the very least, Miss Elizabeth is a guarantee.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we got seemingly 9 names that could go into the other 4.
Sherri. Yeah, Sherri's a guarantee.
Sensational Sherri, yeah. She's definite. So she's locked in.
I'd say Sunny.
I would say Sunny as well. And then I would say out of the other ones to get one out of Stacy, Deborah, Sable, Maurice, Marlena, Trish, and Charmel.
Trish, because she parlayed it into the most successful career.
I think that almost discounts it for me, because I think like we probably already put her in the best one for greatest women's wrestlers of all time. We did, so
yeah.
I know she was very good in the role as a valet, but it's kind of superseded by her wrestling career. I think that the ones that stand out most to me are Marlena, Sable, and Stacy.
That's what I'm kind of thinking too, because Deborah, I think, arguably had like a B. I'd put Deborah in the B tier if we're gonna make a potential B tier out of this, because we have enough people that we could.
Honestly,
I'd put Deborah in the B tier. I think I would put Maurice in the B tier. I think I'd go Marlena B tier. And then whoever I wouldn't pick between Stacy and Sable. I think I'd lean actually Stacy being B and Sable A.
Begrudgingly, because she is one of the top acts from the Attitude Era and was actually a big deal. I guess I'll say Sable as well.
Yeah, we can go with that.
So then it would be B tier of Marlena, Maurice, Deborah, Stacy. A tier of Elizabeth, Sherri, Sunny, and Sable.
Cool.
And then non-WWE, we currently have written down Woman, Nancy Benoit, Beulah McGillicuddy, Missy Hyatt, and Francine.
So we need to add Kimberly Page to that. And I would say Maria Kanellis as well.
Would you maybe add Peter from New Japan?
Nah, all she does is dance to the ring. But she does it very, very well.
Ballet, like,
But I'm not complaining, but it might be enough to that.
I would add Baby Doll to this list.
Yeah, Baby Doll definitely as well.
What was Baby Doll again?
She was in NWA. She was Tully Blanchard's main ballet.
I know Baby Doll. Baby Doll, NWA. Yeah, I don't remember her.
She was very prominent at the time.
I mean, NWA is not a company that I've really followed too much.
She was a big character at that time. So I would put her ahead of pretty much anyone outside of Woman actually on that list.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think she should absolutely be on this list. If I'm doing it, it's Beulah, Baby Doll, Woman, and Missy. Right.
I could go along with that. Honestly, like I think you got Francine, Kimberly Page, Maria Kanellis, and then you could throw some like one's not springing to mind right now. Oh, probably actually, and this would be just personal thing. I would probably go with Katrina from Lucha Underground. I just think she was like one of the pivotal characters in that entire run of that series.
Personalities in pro wrestling history. Let's see if I can find a list of some other people that we might have forgotten or something. Mostly
doesn't look like we forgot a single person.
Let's see. This is the hottest list. Some WWE.
I mean, you could add Deborah to to this one if you wanted to. Because Deborah was in WCW beforehand.
Do you want to add?
You could add Marlena as well because she was Alexandra York before she became Marlena as well. So
you want to potentially put Deborah over in the non-WWE and move either Trish or Charmel into the WWE Valet one?
You could move Charmel because, like, at the end of the day, Trish is going to always be on like a top women's list anyway. So you might as well. She could be freed up a little bit.
Maybe.
Or we could add Lana to that list instead.
Lana, I think. I don't know. Well, that's tough again too because it's like, well, Lana was definitely a manager, but she also was a valet because her main role there, outside of just being, the mouthpiece, was to be the attractive woman next to Rusev. So I can see an argument for I'd potentially put her over.
I'd put her over Charmel. Yeah. Or we make Zelina that character instead because it feels wrong that Zelina's not on the list as well.
I think I'd put Lana over Zelina.
I'd put Zelina overall. Over Maurice.
I could see an argument for that though. Oh man, this is tough.
I just think Zelina should be on the list. So that's kind of what at least like a B tier for this, surely.
Yeah, I would agree. Zelina should absolutely be on a list.
Because Maurice doesn't really. I mean, again, it's a valet, so they don't really need to do too much. But and also she is more prominent as a wrestler than Zelina was, or at least in WWE's parlance. Yeah, Zelina's been a tag team champion, but Maurice was a multiple-time Divas champion. So.
We actually don't have a B tier for the WWE managers. I just realized that.
And
we're only one person away from a B tier of the non-WWE managers. If we could think of somebody else that could go there.
Who would be a manager?
To go with Father James Mitchell, Kevin Sullivan, and Harley Race.
Who would stand out? Lou Albano. But
for non-WWE?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he was definitely not just WWE.
Well, was he?
I'm pretty sure he was outside of WWE. I think he did a lot of the territories.
I think if I'm gonna go with Lou Albano, he's probably a B for a B tier WWE.
That's how I was thinking. Like, we got Albano, we got Fuji, we got Harvey Whippleman. We could put Lana, we could put Zelina.
Yeah,
one of them in the manager.
To be fair, I'm just looking at Lou Albano as well. And when he became a manager, it was pretty much just solely WWE. So yeah,
because he owned.
But he could be B for WWE, at the very least.
How about we play around with this a little bit? This sounds kind of like we're trying to have our cake and eat it too, but that's kind of the whole point. How about we put Lana on the valet, Zelina under the manager, because Zelina was.
Yeah, more of a manager.
I think more of a manager than a valet. And Lana arguably had a little bit more of a valet kind of part to her than a manager. That's kind of tough. They're about 50-50. I don't know.
We're not seriously putting Harvey Whippleman as a B tier manager.
Potentially. I mean, if we could put Lana in there and replace Harvey Whippleman.
Yeah, I would probably do that.
Or Whippleman, almost a C tier.
Well, I'd say again, I don't want to move around too much, but like if you put Lauren back with Valets, I'd say Slick is more worthy.
I can live with it. You know what?
Do you want to make a C tier go on this?
We got Slick, and we got Slick, Grand Wizard, and Freddie Blassie, which we haven't put in any.
You know what though? Honestly, maybe would you put Grand Wizard and Freddie Blassie C tier or B tier?
Oh, Freddie Blassie and Grand Wizard definitely B tier.
Yeah. So
I'd say Fuji is C tier. That's just my personal opinion, but like.
So my B tier would be Albano, Fuji, Wizard, and Blassie, and then C tier could be Whippleman, Slick, Lana, and Vega.
All right, let's play around with this. We all have Albano B tier.
Again, I'm just gonna throw this out there: $1 a month ain't too much to ask.
We all have Albano B tier. We can all agree on that. I would put Fuji in B tier, and so would Rob. So that's a 2 vote, but there's potential to be swung around. There's Lana and Zelina. There's Harvey Whippleman, Slick, Grand Wizard, Classy Freddie Blassie. I'll put it this way. Actually, this is the potential better way of doing this. just to people can't see it on the screen right now, but I'm making a my list, Rob list, Callum list kind of thing. So I would probably go for my B tier, Fuji, Albano, probably Lana, and then Harvey Whippleman, because I do find that really funny. Rob would be Albano, Fuji,
Wizard, and Blassie.
Grand Wizard, Classy Freddie Blassie, and then Rob's would be
mine.
Oh, that wasn't mine.
All right, Callum's would be.
It would be Albano, Wizard, Blassie, and Slick.
I can also live with that.
That would put Fuji under there.
It'd be Fuji, Wizard, and Blassie, along with Albano. Is the
okay? That's the mathematical
choice. Yeah.
So then that moves there. Classy Freddie Blassie becomes there, and then that becomes. Let's see. That would be then the C tier would be Lana, Zelina Vega, Harvey Whippleman, Slick.
Yep.
And then put Charmel over there in the B tier for the Valets.
Sure. That works.
Here you go.
We're only missing a fourth potential for the non-WWE managers. And I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Trying to think.
Do we want to just put like a Stokely in there or something? Or
I would.
Seems a bit
early for that.
To do that.
You got there's a Skandar Akbar. There's a. You guys already said no to. I'm forgetting his name.
Let's see, best WWE, WCW managers. Maybe there's something on that list that JJ Dillon, Miss Elizabeth. Okay, Paul Heyman, same kind of.
It's a lot of similar people.
Sonny Ono.
Yeah, definitely not him.
That's under the 20 greatest WCW managers. Kimberly Page. I don't.
There's Father James Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
We have him on the list. Sir William.
Oh, Bill Dundee. Yeah.
One, Teddy Long.
Oh, Colonel Parker. We didn't talk about Colonel Parker.
That's a little dicey, isn't it?
I don't even know Colonel Parker. I only know Colonel Parker, the Elvis thing, because I watched that Elvis movie recently.
I like that movie, by the way.
I don't think there's anyone that stands out in my head about either TNA or something or
even AEW. I mean, technically speaking, we could put Taz or somebody on that list, or Jake Roberts, or
if they did a little more, I'd be more into it. But every time they get going with these managers, it's like starting top.
Just if there's someone from a bit more of an old school approach that we could add into that. Because most of them are ones that I think are more likely in...
Who managed Buddy Rogers? Anyway, off the top of your head? I want to say
Buddy Rogers.
Bobby something. Bobby Davis?
Oh, yeah, Bob.
Am I right on that? Bobby Davis?
Bobby Davis, yeah. He was,
Go me.
But that was WWE.
Oh, what about Fonzie?
Fonzie?
Who?
What about Bill Alfonso? Come on.
Oh, Bill Alfonso.
I'm like, what, from fucking Happy Days?
With the whistle and the RVD and the Sabu.
I mean, I'm not totally against it.
I could also make really remember him.
I could make an argument for Gedo from New Japan.
I'd listen to that.
He's currently managing Jay White, who's the current.
He managed Okada
and he managed Okada as well for a long time. Yeah. Seeing if there's anyone else.
Is there any faction guys from New Japan that would be like, oh my god, this guy created his own faction to the point that
they're mainly wrestlers. They're mainly wrestlers that create that.
Yeah, the wrestlers do it there.
But not somebody in the manager side.
Not really. I mean, as I say, Gedo is probably the biggest example of that because he's the booker of New Japan, but he's also he managed Okada and then he managed Jay White. So he manages champions.
As I look on Wikipedia to jar my memory, I just want to throw out there. it says here that Byron Saxton managed Wade Barrett, Michael Tarver, Naomi, and
What?
Cameron. Listen, I don't know when that happened. I would love to see footage of that one day.
I would go with one of Bill Alfonso, Ghetto, or that guy that you were mentioning.
Bobby Davis.
That guy.
No, Skandar Akbar. What you were saying?
Skandar. Devastation Incorporated. There's a lot there.
They're like the three that are standing out to me.
Or we could also just go, fuck it, we don't need a beat here if we wanted to.
We don't necessarily.
But we are, we got Father James, we got Kevin
Yeah.
Sullivan, we got Harley Race, so.
We got a name. We got some names there to choose from.
I'd probably go with Fonzie just because that whistle was obnoxious.
Yeah, he's an example of a wrestler with a
prop.
With a prop, yeah.
That whistle's so obnoxious, and like he added to the RVD thing and made RVD more obnoxious. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you're obnoxious, you're a great wrestler.
I have no memories of Bill Alfonso, but if you guys want to make it a 2-vote, I'll put him down there. I don't care.
Yeah, why not? We should wrap up soon anyway. So.
That's been a little
Hey,
while.
listen, we have done nearly 3 hours of this.
That's true.
Right.
2 hours and 25 minutes.
All right. You cannot say we don't give you your money's worth.
$1 a month.
That's the point.
Everyone listening to this, if you donated $1 a month, you'd get much more content like this going forward. That would be sure. So, this is our breakdown. This is what's going to go on that wiki page. Bodyguard, Mount Rushmore, Virgil, China, Diesel, Wardlow, Manservant, it's stupid to say. Our Manservant, Mount Rushmore, J&J Security, Ricardo Rodriguez, Sakamoto, and Babu. Our worst managers, Oscar, Kimchi, Yamaguchi-san, and Jose Lothario. Our worst valets, Mama, Benjamin, Sapphire, Mrs. Cleavage, and Ryan Shamrock. Our non-WWE B tier, Bill Alfonso, Harley Race, Kevin Sullivan, Father James Mitchell. Our non-WWE A tier, Paul Ellering, Gary Hart, JJ Dillon, James E. Cornette. Our non-WWE valet list, B tier, Deborah McMichael, Francine, Kimberly Page, and Maria Kanellis. Non-WWE A list for the valets, Woman, Baby Doll, Buell McGillicuddy, and Missy Hyatt. Our B tier for the WWE valets, under the best, Stacy Keibler, Charmel, Maurice, Marlena. A tier is Miss Elizabeth, Sensational Sherri, Sunny, and Sable. A lot of S's on these. Our C tier are the managers for WWE, Zelina Vega, Slick, Harvey Whippleman, and Lana. B tier is Captain Lou Albano, Mr. Fuji, Grand Wizard, and Classy Freddie Blassie. What a great name. I love that. And our A tier, what you would constitute as, I guess, like the core of this list, because we technically could have just been like, all right, Mount Rushmore of managers, we're keeping it that kind of thing. Jimmy Hart, Paul Bearer, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Paul Heyman. I like these lists.
I like them a lot. I like these discussions.
Mount Rushmores are so much fun. We get into lots of different people to talk about. We debate about a lot of things. That's why we keep doing these, because we know that you guys enjoy them too. And if you want to make sure that we know that you enjoy them, leave a comment below. Tell us what you thought about this. Hit that like button as well, because that is something that will help us out on the YouTube algorithm. If you do think that we are worth that $1 a month, donate to the Patreon or the YouTube member subscription. By all means, of course, if you think we are worth more than $1 a month, you got the Darkcast tier, you got the Pick Your Poison tier, you got tiers above that, you got the $5 tier, the Smarks Club, where you can just, be a part of the list on the website and everything. And keep listening and keep showing your support in whatever ways that you can. Press us along with the share button. If you want to just tweet out, hey, you're interested in pro wrestling podcast, check out these guys or something. Lots of different ways to do that. Put something on Reddit or whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to do necessarily, but if you got a message board or a Discord service that you want to plug us, all that stuff is awesome, and we greatly appreciate that. Leave your comments with your lists in the comment section below. If you're listening to this outside of the YouTube stuff and you want to list your stuff on some other kind of thing, we got the page on smark@moment.com. You can just tweet at us. You can put something on the Facebook post, whatever it is. There's lots of different ways for you to express yourselves. And we've got the hot tags coming up next on the Friday edition, 2 days from now. We've got plenty of pay-per-view content coming up in the next week when we have not only Clash at the Castle, which I still cannot say without thinking Clash at the Castle, but we've got Worlds Collide and we've got All Out. And it does not fucking feel like it to me because all three of these events are kind of like, you don't have a whole lot of matches announced. We're running out of time. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Karrion Kross has got a fucking clock that he's looking at right now. And, we'll be running down lots of pay-per-view point content when it comes to that. A predictions post for each of those and a post-show for potentially each of those. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to do a post-show for Worlds Collide because we don't know when that's going to end, if that's going to conflict with AEW.
That'll probably end around 6:30. I think we might be able to do it.
I think the last time that happened, where we had something similar, it ended where we had like a short window. So we might do a short one on that if it ends up being a little bit too close to when AEW starts their kickoff and their buy-in. I think they call it that. Kickoff, pre-show, buy-in, whatever. If it ends up being like that and we don't have enough time to squeeze it in, then we will lump that into the hot tags or something. But we will talk about that because I'll be watching it. So, and I'll try to do my dark cast later on today, talk about those topics from the hot tags I didn't get a chance to talk about over these past few weeks. So stay tuned to that on Patreon and the YouTube channel membership. Plenty of stuff happening on smark@moment.com for you to check out, and fanboysanonymous.com. Everything you can find over there, just go to fanboysanonymous.com and you'll see that. You'll see the YouTube channel. You'll see all the other things you can subscribe to. Definitely want to do more for that. I found myself spending 5 minutes earlier today thinking, how would I plan out the entire DC universe? And then I went, oh my God, I can't go down this rabbit hole. I got a podcast to do. I started writing down notes of, does Martian Manhunter come as the 5th or 6th or 7th member of the Justice League and all this stuff? And I'm like, focus, but maybe I'll talk about that down the line. Maybe I'll even show off some of the Power Rangers stuff because I'm currently about to start volume 5 of that.
Just start making content so that you can, do more of what you love, is what I say to you.
I really, 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 really want to do more of that. And of course, you can sponsor more of that stuff by hitting up the Patreon and YouTube channel membership for Fanboys Anonymous too. If you're like, God damn it, guys, do that Mount Rushmore Spider-Man villains. Yep, you can request it just like Frankie did with this Pick Your Poison. So again, thank you to Frankie for this edition. Hopefully you enjoyed this as well. 2.5 hours worth of discussion about managers and valets. And of course, if you are following everything that's happening under A Mango Tree, go to amangotree.com and follow me on social media at Tony Mango. And make sure that you're following Callum and Rob as well for all the great things that they do. Rob?
Yeah, I do a lot of okay things over at Fightful.com, and Fightful Select is where you get all your scoops from the great Sean Ross Sapp. You can follow me personally everywhere at Dude Felice. Always stay tuned for dudefelice.com and more announcements on that coming in the very near future. But for now, I turn you over to the great Callum Wiggins.
So you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out all the stuff that's going out on the Smark website. Prioritize the power rankings, my week-to-week contribution going out every Saturday. And there's also, you'll find the Fantasy League there as well. So you can check out all the latest updates, standings, the points as they go in every single week. And yeah, check out all that great stuff. And that's it from me.
Hopefully you all can enjoy Dynamite tonight. Title on the line. I don't know why that's happening now instead of All Out, but we'll see what's planning on going down there. We'll talk about that with the hot tags and anything else that has happened, including Johnny Gargano's return and the reuniting and ending of Index with NXT and plenty of other things like that. So yeah, more Smark Out Moment content coming your way in just a little over 2 days, I guess you could say at that point. So stay tuned and we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment and we are being counted out.